Pursuant to the Speaker of House of Representatives and Majority Leader of the Senate, acting jointly in accordance with House Concurrent Resolution Number 5, the House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Good afternoon. As our nation faces yet another day of adversity, let us be reminded of our eternal hope for the future and the trust we place in our Creator. Whether you choose to practice the Christian faith or otherwise, I hope that today's verse from the Bible will remind all of us of our own hopes for the future and our own faith to trust in one another. We are strong and we are going to prevail. Today's prayer is from 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 13 through 17. Let us pray. Now, who is going to harm you if you are enthusiastic for what is good? But even if you should suffer because of righteousness, blessed are you. Do not be afraid or terrified with fear of them, but sanctify the Lord in your hearts. Always be ready to give an explanation to anyone who asks for a reason for your hope, but do it with gentleness and reverence, keeping your conscience clear, so that when you are maligned, those who defame your good conduct in the Lord may themselves be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that be the will of God, than for doing evil. This we pray in your name, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
The chaplain for today is Representative Pat Garofalo from District 58B, Farmington, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Now for the complicated part. Members, we will take the roll, and we will take the roll in accordance with our new House rule. The roll will be taken by an alphabetical roll call of the names. And if members can please pay attention and respond when their name is called, that would be appreciated. Members who are on the phone, if you can please keep your ambient noise to a minimum. And if you can please state the city that you are presently in while you call for the roll call, on the first roll call. The clerk will take the roll.
Acom. Acom.
Acom. Acom. St. Paul, present.
Acom. St. Paul, present. Albright. Albright. Anderson.
Anderson, Barsness Township, present.
Anderson. Starbuck, present. Backer.
Present, Browns Valley, Minnesota.
Backer, Browns Valley, present. Bonner.
Bonner, St. Paul, present.
Bonner, St. Paul, present. Barr.
Barr, Chamber, St. Paul, present.
Barr, St. Paul, present. Baker. Baker. Becker Finn.
Becker Finn, St. Paul, present.
Becker Finn, St. Paul, present. Bennett.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present. Bernardi.
Bernardi, St. Paul, present.
Bernardi, St. Paul, present. Bierman.
Bierman, St. Paul, present.
Bierman, St. Paul, present. Bow. Bow, St. Paul, present. Brand. Brand. Cantrell.
Cantrell, St. Paul, present.
Cantrell, St. Paul, present. Carlson A.
Carlson A, St. Paul, present.
Carlson A, St. Paul, present. Carlson L.
Carlson L, St. Paul, present.
Carlson L, St. Paul, present. Christensen.
Christensen, St. Paul, present.
Christensen, St. Paul, present. Claflin.
Claflin, St. Paul, present.
Claflin, St. Paul, present. Considine.
Considine, Mankato, present.
Considine, Mankato, present. Daniels.
Daniels, Faribault, present.
Daniels, Faribault, present. Daudt. Daudt, St. Paul, present. Davids. Davids, St. Paul, present. Davney. Davney, St. Paul, present. Dean.
Dean, St. Paul, present.
Dean, St. Paul, present. Damuth.
Damuth, St. Paul, present.
Damuth, St. Paul, present. Detmer. Detmer, St. Paul, present. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, St. Paul, present. Eklund.
Eklund, International Falls, present.
Eklund, International Falls, present. Edelson.
Edelson, St. Paul, present.
Edelson, St. Paul, present. Elkins.
Elkins, St. Paul, present.
Elkins, St. Paul, present. Erickson. Erickson, St. Paul, present. Fabian.
Fabian, Roseau, present.
Fabian, Roseau, present. Fisher.
Fisher, St. Paul, present.
Fisher, St. Paul, present. Franson.
Franson, Alexandria Township.
Franson, Alexandria Township, present. Freiberg.
Freiberg, St. Paul, present.
Freiberg, St. Paul, present. Garofalo. Garofalo, St. Paul, present. Gomez.
Gomez, St. Paul, present.
Gomez, St. Paul, present. Green.
Green, St. Paul, present.
Green, St. Paul, present. Grossel.
Grossel, Clearbrook, present.
Grossel, Clearbrook, present. Grunhagen.
St. Paul.
Grunhagen, St. Paul, present. Gunther.
Gunther, Fairmont, present.
Gunther, Fairmont, present. Haley. Haley.
Haley, Red Wing, present.
Haley, Red Wing, present. Halverson. Halverson, St. Paul, present. Hamilton.
Hamilton, Mountain Lake, present.
Hamilton, Mountain Lake, present. Hanson.
Hanson, St. Paul, present.
Hanson, St. Paul, present. Hassan.
Hassan, St. Paul, present.
Hassan, St. Paul, present. Hausman. Hausman.
Hausman, St. Paul, present.
Hausen, St. Paul, present. Heinrich.
Heinrich, Anoka, present.
Heinrich, Anoka, present. Heinzemann. Heinzemann, St. Paul, present. Herr.
Her, St. Paul, present.
Herr, St. Paul, present. Hertos.
Hertos from Greenfield, present.
Hertos, Greenfield, present. Hornstein.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present. Howard. Howard, St. Paul, present. Hewitt.
Hewitt, St. Paul, present.
Hewitt, St. Paul, present. Johnson.
Johnson, St. Paul, present.
Johnson, St. Paul, present. Jordan.
Jordan, St. Paul, present.
Jordan, St. Paul, present. Jurgens.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present. Keel.
Crookston, Keel, Crookston, present.
Keel, Crookston, present. Cleavorn. Cleavorn, St. Paul, present. Cagle. Cagle, St. Paul, present. Katiza-Watun.
Katiza-Watun, St. Paul, present.
Katiza-Watun, St. Paul, present. Kosnick.
Cosmic, St. Paul, present.
Kosnick, St. Paul, present. Creshaw.
Creshaw, St. Paul, present.
Creshaw, St. Paul, present. Kunish-Podine.
Kunish-Podine, St. Paul, present.
Kunish-Podine, St. Paul, present. Lehman.
Lehman, St. Paul, present.
Lehman, St. Paul, present. Lee.
Lee, Minneapolis, present.
Lee, Minneapolis, present. Lesh. Lesh, St. Paul, present. Liebling. Liebling, St. Paul, present. Lean.
Lee, Moorhead, present.
Lean, Moorhead, present. Lilly.
Lily, St. Paul, present.
Lilly, St. Paul, present. Lippert.
Lippert, St. Paul, present.
Lippert, St. Paul, present. Lislagard.
Lislagard, St. Paul, present.
Lislagard, St. Paul, present. Long. Long, St. Paul, present. Lucero.
Lucero, St. Paul, present.
Lucero, St. Paul, present. Lewick.
Lewick, Aiken, present.
Lewick, Aiken, present. Mahoney.
Mahoney, St. Paul, present.
Mahoney, St. Paul, present. Mann.
Mann, Lakeville, present.
Mann, Lakeville, present. Mariani.
Mariani, St. Paul, present.
Mariani, St. Paul, present. Marquardt.
Marquardt, Dilworth, present.
Marquardt, Dilworth, present. Mason. Mason, St. Paul, present. McDonald.
McDonald, St. Paul, present.
McDonald, St. Paul, present. Mecklin.
Mecklin, Clear Lake, present.
Mecklin, Clear Lake, present. Miller. Miller, St. Paul, present. Moeller. Moeller, St. Paul, present. Moran.
Moran, St. Paul, present.
Moran, St. Paul, present. Morrison.
Morrison, St. Paul, present.
Morrison, St. Paul, present. Munson. Munson, St. Paul, present. Murphy.
Murphy, Hermantown, present.
Murphy, Hermantown, present. Nash.
Nash, Waconia, present.
Nash, Waconia, present. Nelson M.
Nelson M., St. Paul, present.
Nelson M., St. Paul, present. Nelson N.
Nelson N., Clover Township, present.
Nelson N., Lower Township, present. New. New, St. Paul, present. Nor.
North, St. Paul, present.
Nor, St. Paul, present. Nornis.
Nornis, St. Paul, present.
Nornis, St. Paul, present. Novotny.
Novotny, Elk River, present.
Novotny, Elk River, present. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, St. Paul, present. Olson.
Olson, St. Paul, present.
Olson, St. Paul, present. O'Neill.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present. Pulowski.
Pulowski, Winona, present.
Pulowski, Winona, present. Purcell.
Purcell, St. Paul, present.
Purcell, St. Paul, present. Petersburg.
Petersburg, Waseca, present.
Petersburg, Waseca, present. Pearson.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present. Pinto.
Pinto, St. Paul, present.
Pinto, St. Paul, present. Poppy. Poppy, St. Paul, present. Poston.
Poston, Lake Shore, present.
Poston, Lakeshore, present. Pryor.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present. Quam. Quam, St. Paul, present. Richardson.
Richardson, St. Paul, present.
Richardson, St. Paul, present. Robbins.
Robbins, St. Paul, present.
Robbins, St. Paul, present. Runbeck.
Runbeck, St. Paul, present.
Runbeck, St. Paul, present. Sandell.
Sandell, St. Paul, present.
Sandell, St. Paul, present. Sandsted.
Samstead, Hibbing, present.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present. Sauk.
Sauk, Rochester, present.
Sauk, Rochester, present. Schumacher.
Schumacher, St. Paul, present.
Schumacher, St. Paul, present. Schultz.
Schultz, Duluth, present.
Schultz, Duluth, present. Scott. Scott, St. Paul, present. Stevenson.
Stevenson, St. Paul, present.
Stevenson, St. Paul, present. Sundin.
Sundin, St. Paul, present.
Sundin, St. Paul, present. Swazinski.
Blazinski, Nordland Township, Section 13, present.
Swazinski, Norland Township, present. Tabke. Tabke, St. Paul, present. Tice.
Tice, St. Cloud, present.
Tice, St. Cloud, present. Torkelson.
Torkelson, Lake Hanska Township, present.
Torkelson, Lake Hanska, present. Erdahl.
Erdahl, Axton Township, present.
Erdahl, Hankston Township, present. Vang.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present. Vogel.
Vogel, Elko Newmarket, present.
Vogel, Elko Newmarket, present. Wagenius.
Wagenius, Minneapolis, present.
Wagenius, Minneapolis, present. Waslowick.
Waslowick, White Bear Township, present.
Waslowick, White Bear Township, present. West.
West, St. Paul, present.
West, St. Paul, present. Winkler. Winkler, St. Paul, present. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, St. Paul, present.
Wolgamott, St. Paul, present. Zhangjiai.
Zhangjiai, St. Paul, present.
Zhangjiai, St. Paul, present. Zhangti.
Zhangti, St. Paul, present.
Zhangti, St. Paul, present. Joachim.
Milwaukee, St. Paul, present.
Milwaukee, St. Paul, present. Speaker Hartman. Present. Speaker Hartman, St. Paul, present. Albright.
Are muted.
Albright.
You are unmuted.
Albright, St. Paul, present. Baker.
St. Paul, present.
Baker, St. Paul,
Baker.
present. Brand. Brand.
Brand, St. Paul, present.
Brand, St. Paul, present. That's it? Yes. St. Paul.
You are
Waslowick.
You are unmuted.
Waslowick. St. Paul.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present.
A quorum is present.
You are
The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 91st Session, 2020, 77th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Tuesday, April 7th, 2020.
If there is no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading, House File number 1138.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 2471.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3028.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3043.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3081.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3159.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3181.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3603.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3677.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3741.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3852.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3975.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 4044.
Second reading. Conference committee reports on House files.
Conference can report on House File number 3100, an act relating to health care, establishing an emergency insulin program. The conference report is addressed to the Honorable Melissa Hortman, Speaker of the House, the Honorable Jeremy R. Miller, President of the Senate. We, the undersigned conferees for House File number 3100, report that we've agreed upon the items in dispute and recommended as follows. The conference committee report is signed by 4 of the 5 members on behalf of the House and 5 of the 5 members on the part of the Senate. Howard moves that the report of the conference committee on House File number 3100 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by conference committee.
I recognize the author, the member from Hennepin, Representative Howard, to the conference committee report.
Madam Speaker, members, this is a good day in Minnesota. We're going to do something remarkable today and save the lives of Minnesotans. Before I describe the bill and walk through some of the differences in terms of the conference committee report from what passed in the House, I do have to thank some people that contributed hours of time and talent to get us to this place. First, I want to thank the members of our conference committee report, Representative Liebling, who spent many months and hours working on this, as well as Representative Morrison, Representative New, and Representative Albright. I want to thank the Senate conferees, especially Senator Wickland, who authored this bill with me more than a year ago and has worked tirelessly on this, as well as Senator Jensen, the author in the Senate, Senator Benson, Senator Pratt, and Senator Rosen. And I want to thank Patrick McQuillan, our CA, who has put in untold hours working on this as well. There are other members since last session that have worked mightily to get this to the finish line, including Representative Halverson, Representative Mann, and Representative Hamilton. In the Senate, I want to thank Senator Little, Senator Marty, and Senator Abler. I also want to thank Representative Aaron Murphy, who introduced the first version of Alec's bill in 2018 and has been a steadfast supporter as we went along this journey. Additionally, I want to thank the Governor Walz and his administration, as well as folks at MNsure, the Board of Pharmacy, doctors, pharmacists, and nurses, all who helped in crafting this bill. And of course, most of all, I want to thank Nicole Smith-Holt and James Holt for sharing Alec with us, and for the countless Minnesotans who have joined us at this Capitol. You are the reason we're going to pass this bill today, and I know so many of you wish you could be here, and we feel your presence in this Capitol now. House File 3100, the Conference Committee report, the Alex Smith Insulin Affordability Act achieves what we set out to do more than a year ago to ensure that Minnesotans who are most at risk of rationing their insulin can get an emergency supply when they need it at a price they can afford. And that insulin manufacturers that have profited richly while the price of insulin has soared will have a role to solve this crisis. A few of the highlights. A patient who is in need of emergency insulin will be able to get it by filling out a basic application on the MNsure website or that's available at pharmacists. They will pay a copay of $35 at their pharmacy to gain a 30-day supply with an option for an additional 30 days if they need it. We will connect those Minnesotans with available long-term resources, whether it be health care options through the MNsure Exchange, through Minnesota Care, and also connect folks to long-term patient assistance programs operated by the drug manufacturers. The eligibility for this program really is one of the huge victories because we are ensuring that a broad spectrum of Minnesotans can access the program that need it. Folks that are uninsured, underinsured, and Minnesotans on Medicare with high out-of-pocket costs will be able to access an emergency supply of insulin. We took the Senate position. There's no income eligibility on the emergency program. There is an eligibility of 400% FPG to access longer-term insulin. In terms of drug manufacturers' participation in the program, this is one of the key differences with the House bill. As you recall, the House bill included a fee on the 3 insulin manufacturers to cover the cost of the insulin in the Minnesota insulin program. In this bill, the manufacturers essentially have a choice. They can provide the supply of insulin and reimburse the costs of pharmacists that are dispensing it, or they can face fines so that Minnesota can stand up and run an insulin assistance program here in Minnesota. Those fines are more than double than what was included in the Senate bill. An insulin manufacturer could see $3.6 million in fines per year for noncompliance in year 1 and $7.2 million in fines for noncompliance in year 2. We've also added some baseline requirements for insulin manufacturers that offer patient assistance programs so that they are clearing barriers that patients have faced. Those include operating a phone line 6 days a week for patients to access, as well as meeting the baseline eligibility requirements set forth in this bill. We also include an amendment that was worked on together with the House and Senate, but brought forward by the Senate to exempt low-cost insulins that come to market from participating in this program. There's been some discussion of and efforts of a biosimilar or a generic insulin to come to market, and if that comes to market at a truly affordable cost for Minnesotans, they would be exempt from participating in this program. I do want to mention that the cost-sharing cap on health plans for insulin that was included in the House bill is not in this, was not included in this bill, but it is something that warrants our consideration next session. You know, ultimately, what this bill says to Minnesotans is that if you need insulin to live, you can get it at a price you can afford. It's giving diabetics who manage this challenging disease every moment of their lives the peace of mind that as a state we're saying we care about your life and we're going to make sure that you get the medication that you need, and that the drug manufacturers that have profited richly as the price has soared will share in the responsibility in solving this crisis. No state has moved forward with a bill like this and made this kind of commitment to its people. It is truly nation-leading, and ultimately it will save lives. So I thank members. I stand for questions about the conference committee report, and we'll have a few more comments on third reading, but would stand for any questions.
Members, we're on the motion to adopt the conference committee report. Is there any discussion on the motion to adopt the conference committee report? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, House File Number 3100, as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. Discussion to passage of the bill. The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker, members, I'll be voting in favor of this bill today. This bill essentially codifies the assistance programs that the pharmaceutical companies have already been providing. In addition, it does provide some this is model legislation that we can see using in other states. It no longer has the objectionable provisions of a massive growth in government, does not contain a mandatory fee for those who are supplying insulin, and it's a bill that candidly is a lot better than I thought it would be coming back from conference committee. So something that is a good bill that I would encourage members to support. Thank you.
Any further discussion? The member from Isanti, Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Appreciate the work by the conferees and by the bill author. Representative Howard has really poured his heart into this issue and done some really good work. This bill is coming back from conference committee much the way that I talked about in my speech the last time we talked about this issue on the House floor, where I kind of outlined what the bill probably should look like. And now it looks like that. Unfortunately, the reality is, and I'm not one to ascribe blame to someone, you know, I think there's an argument to be made that the pharmaceutical companies, the manufacturers of insulin, acted late. But the reality is they have acted, and they now are providing insulin to all of these people in the ways that are outlined in this bill. So it really means that this bill is unnecessary, that Minnesotans have access to all of these programs already from the manufacturers, in some cases I think maybe even better than what's outlined in the bill. For that reason, I'm going to vote against this today, but I certainly want to let folks know that I do appreciate the work that was done on this issue, because it is a serious issue, and I think we all should make sure that, and we all should want to make sure that folks who need insulin have access to it. And I think in this situation, the private marketplace once again beat government to the punch. And they have already solved this problem and are already providing insulin in all of these ways to folks that are in need of insulin. So it really makes this bill unnecessary. So I'll be voting against it, but thanks for your work on it.
Further discussion. I see Representative Munson outside the chamber. I just want to make sure he's not seeking to be recognized. Seeing no further discussion, Representative Howard.
Members, I'll just have a few closing comments before we vote. This has been a journey, this bill, and it began around the kitchen table of James and Nicole, which I think is a rare way for legislation to originate, especially of this nature. And, you know, I had the chance to meet Nicole and James and hear about Alec, his love for life, his love for Minnesota sports, and to hear about his tragic death. And it'll always stick with me, the notion that Alec had $1,000 in his bank account, and to fulfill his insulin that he needed, it required $1,300. And for that reason, to lose Alec from this world is truly heartbreaking. You know, Nicole and James told me about their advocacy, how they've worked tirelessly to confront the 3 insulin manufacturers that have raised the price of insulin 1,200%. That for type 1 diabetics, insulin is like water, and they're literally being priced out of their lives. So we set out to pass a simple bill, one that says no one should ever lose their life because they cannot afford the insulin they need to survive, and that insulin manufacturers that have profited should share in the responsibility in solving this. That really is a simple concept that I think a lot of us could understand and support, and it's why this bill has moved forward with such support from our community, from our state. And of course, since we began this journey, we lost another Minnesotan, Jessamiah David Scherer, 21 years of age, who lost his life, confirming that this bill is absolutely necessary and that it will save the lives of Minnesotans. And just a few comments about what I think some lessons of this journey are. One is that the fight to disrupt the status quo is very challenging. There are entrenched interests, always willing to fight back. And as government, we sometimes aren't as adept at thinking outside the box. And so this has been a challenge. And let's make no qualms about it. There have been powerful, moneyed special interests that would like to see the status quo continue and for this bill to be stopped in its tracks. But what those special interests didn't count on was ordinary Minnesotans driven by love for their families, for their brothers, for their sisters, their uncles and aunts, their fellow Minnesotans. The courageous insulin warriors that showed up at this Capitol time and again, that drove to Canada, that flooded our social media and dominated it, frankly. The fight for affordable insulin shows us the immense power of what happens when we lead with our humanity and we fight together. A mighty few became an unstoppable force for good in this world, and because of you, you'll deliver a victory to Minnesotans today that will save lives. So that's why as we pass this bill, know that Alec's story isn't finished. His memory is going to linger in this Capitol for years to come. And Alec's story, shared by his loving parents, will continue to move the powers that be to act here and across the country. With a full heart, I ask you all to vote yes on the Alec Smith Insulin Affordability Act. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll. Members, I would remind you, especially those of you on the telephone, that please reduce ambient noise for the roll call. Please do your best to pay attention and answer when your name is called. And on this roll call, you merely need to vote yes or no, aye or nay. You do not need to repeat your location. The clerk will call the roll.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, aye.
Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker Finn. Becker Finn. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, no.
Daniels, no. Daudt. Daudt, no. Davids. Davids, aye. Davney. Davney, aye. Dean.
Aye.
Dean, aye. Damuth.
Damus, aye.
Damuth, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, no. Eklund.
Aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson.
Aye.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson. Erickson, aye. Fabian.
No.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Franson. Franson.
Aye.
Franson, aye. Freiberg.
Yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo. Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
No.
Green, no. Grossel.
No.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
No.
Heinrich, no. Heinzemann. Heinzemann, no. Her.
Aye.
Her, aye. Hertas.
No.
Hertas, no. Hornstein.
Aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard. Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
No.
Johnson, no. Jordan.
Aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
No.
Keel, no. Cleavorn. Cleavorn, aye. Cagle. Cagle, aye. Katiza Wattoon.
Katiza Wattoon, aye.
Katiza Wattoon, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic. Aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish Podine.
Kunish Podine, aye.
Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
Aye.
Lee, aye. Lesh. Lesh, aye. Liebling. Liebling, aye. Lean.
Aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislagard.
Aye.
Lislagard, aye. Long. Long, aye. Lucero.
No.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann.
Aye.
Mann, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, yes.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason. Mason, aye. McDonald.
Aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklen.
No.
Mecklen, no. Miller. Miller, aye. Moeller. Moeller, aye. Moran.
Aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison.
Aye.
Morrison, aye. Munson. Munson, no. Murphy. Murphy.
Aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash.
No.
Nash, no. Nelson M.
Nelson N. No, excuse me, Nelson M. I.
Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N. I.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, no. Nor.
I.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll? O'Driscoll, no. Olson?
Aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill?
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski?
Aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell?
Aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg?
Aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson?
Aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto?
Aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy? Poppy, aye. Poston?
Aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor?
Aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam? Quam, aye. Richardson?
Aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins?
Robbins. Aye.
Robbins, aye. Runbeck? Runbeck, no. Sandell?
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted?
Aye.
Sandsted, aye. Salk?
Aye.
Salk, aye. Schumacher?
Aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz?
Aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott? Scott, no. Stevenson?
Aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin?
Aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski?
No.
Swazinski, no. Tabke?
Are muted.
Tabke, aye. Tice?
Unmuted. Aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson?
Aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl?
Aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang?
Aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel?
No.
Vogel, no. Wagenius?
Aye.
Wagenius, aye. Waslawick?
Aye.
Waslawick, aye. West?
Aye.
West, aye. Winkler? Winkler, aye. Wolgamott?
Aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie?
Aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti? Zhang Ti? Joachim?
Aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman? Speaker Hartman, aye. So two people. Should I go back? Can I go back? Becker Finn? She ready? Becker Finn?
Becker Finn, aye.
Becker Finn, aye. Zhang Ti? Zhang Ti. Not coming in. Go again. Zhang Ti. Not coming through.
You are muted.
There being 111 ayes and 22 nays, the bill is passed as amended by conference and its title agreed to. Introduction of House Files. The following House Files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House Files and give them their first reading.
Introduction of first reading of House Files 4538 through 4556.
First reading, House Files 4538 through 4556.
Pursuant to Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, Winkler moves that the rule therein be suspended and an urgency be declared, and that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that House File number 4556 be given its second and third readings and be placed upon its final passage.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, this is the motion to suspend the rules and immediately take up the COVID-19 bill today, House File 4556. I would ask for your support.
Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and members. I would support the motion.
Any discussion to the motion to suspend the rules? The clerk will take the roll on the motion to suspend.
Give me the thumbs up. Go.
Same admonitions apply. Silence is golden.
Go. Acom.
Aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner. Aye.
Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, aye. Baker.
Aye.
Baker, aye. Becker Finn.
Aye.
Becker Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett. Aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand. Brand.
Aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Aye.
Carlson, A. Aye. Carlson, L.
Aye.
Carlson, L. Aye. Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine. Aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels. Aye.
Daniels, aye. Daudt. Daudt, aye. Davids. Davids, aye. Davney. Davney, aye. Dean. Dean, aye. Damath.
Aye.
Damath, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, aye. Eklund.
Aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson.
Aye.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson. Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Aye.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo. Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Aye.
Grossel, aye. Grunhagen.
Aye.
Grunhagen, aye. Gunther.
Aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman. Heinzman, aye. Herr.
Aye.
Herr, aye. Hertos.
Aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
Aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard. Howard. Hewitt.
Aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn. Cleavorn, aye. Cagle. Cagle, aye. Katiza Watun.
Aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
No, but we. Aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish Podine.
Kunis Podine, aye.
Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
Aye.
Lee, aye. Lesh. Lesh, aye. Liebling. Liebling, aye. Lean.
Aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislagard.
Aye.
Lislagard, aye. Long. Long, aye. Lucero.
No.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann.
Have you heard him? He has
Aye.
a client.
Mann, aye. Mariani.
Aye.
Mariani, aye. Markwart.
Aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason. Mason, aye. McDonald.
Aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklin.
Mecklin, aye.
Mecklin, aye. Miller. Miller, aye. Moeller. Moeller, aye. Moran.
Aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison.
Aye.
Morrison, aye. Munson. Munson, aye. Murphy.
Aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash.
Nash.
Aye.
Nash, aye. Nelson M.
Aye.
Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N. Aye.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy. Poppy, aye. Poston.
Aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam. Quam, aye. Richardson.
Aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins.
Robbins, aye.
Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
Aye.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher.
Aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke. Tabke, aye. Tice.
Aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
Aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie.
Aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti. Zhang Ti. Joachim.
Aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye. So we just got two. Howard. 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 Zhang Ti. Zhang Ti.
The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its second reading.
Second reading, House File Number 4556.
Second reading. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, this is the fourth of our COVID-related bills representing the negotiation and conversation between the four legislative caucuses, the administration, and the governor's office. This bill provides $1.25 million in funding for Second Harvest Heartland for milk and protein. It provides an extension of 60 days for farmer-lender mediation. It provides MA coverage for testing and alternative health care. It codifies the Department of Health Executive Order 20-32, providing flexibility for the health department in dealing with the crisis. It provides for telemedicine extension, harmless error for wills, civil court deadline extensions as requested by the Chief Justice, a deadline extension for child support motions, it permits remote marriage applications, provides flexibility for local meetings, provides exemption from a liquor posting requirement, various transportation issues, and the bill also contains Health and Human Services technical corrections. A number of the lead House negotiators on the Democratic side are available in the chamber for question, members, and I ask for a yes vote on the bill.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Drazkowski moves to amend House File Number 4556 as follows. The amendment is coded A20-0742.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd actually like to withdraw this particular amendment. It's not drafted properly, and I have an oral amendment in lieu of this, if that works for you, Madam Speaker.
State your oral amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Oh, wait, I got ahead of myself. Representative Drazkowski withdraws the A20-0742. Representative Drazkowski, please state your oral amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, on page 11, I would move to delete lines 27, 28, and 29, and then to renumber accordingly, Madam Speaker.
Please restate your oral amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The oral amendment would be to delete on page 11, lines 27, 28, and 29.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Drazkowski moves to amend House File Number 4556 as follows. Page 11, delete lines 27, 28, and 29. Renumber the sections in sequence.
Representative Drazkowski, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is a big bill. There's a lot of stuff in it. This particular section of the bill, section 13, which was section 12 in the old draft, and Mr. Majority Leader, I'm hoping later if someone could outline for us what are the new provisions in this bill in the latest draft, which we just got recently, compared to the original one, because I didn't read the new provisions in the bill with this new draft. But members, the amendment takes out a paragraph in the bill that gives full authority to the Department of Health over 17 chapters of statute. You heard that right, members. 17 full chapters of statute. And so in any of these 17 chapters, the Commissioner of Health may temporarily delay, waive, or modify any provision in any of those 17 chapters of law. That's what we have in front of us, members, in the bill here. I just started to dig into them and nose around in some of these chapters a little bit, members. If you like guns, chapter 144.05, it says the Department of Health can't collect gun data. So that's just one thing that I found in 4.5 or 5 minutes starting to look in chapter 144. Chapter 14, as you know, goes with rulemaking. There's a bunch of other chapters I don't know a lot about. 62D, Representative Davids deals with insurance. You're probably familiar with that chapter. There's a whole section on HMOs and how they operate in there. These are very deep chapters of law that this bill, as presented, members, gives the government full authority to either delay, waive, or modify anything in there that relates to how businesses operate, how the government is supposed to operate, and how people interact with their government and those businesses. So, members, Madam Speaker, I see this provision, specifically these 3 lines, is very irresponsible for us to bring forward in the bill. We are basically giving the authority to the executive branch to have full reign over 17 different chapters in statute. Urge your support to delete these from the bill. Madam Speaker and members, it shouldn't change anything else in the bill, but will instead say to the executive branch and the Department of Health, if you indeed have provisions in those chapters which are very deep and voluminous, if indeed you have things that you would like the legislature to change for this emergency today that we are under from the governor, if indeed they need to be changed, bring them to us. You have thousands of employees. You should be able to bring them to the legislature and tell us which provisions you need changed in order to effectively do your work for the people of the state of Minnesota. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Discussion to the Drazkowski amendment. The member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Well, members, I urge you to vote no on the Drazkowski oral amendment. So first of all, members, you need to understand this was negotiated. Obviously, there was agreement between the four caucuses, at least some members of the four caucuses, purporting to speak for the four caucuses, to the language in this bill. After this language was agreed to, the governor put this language in an executive order. So this is already in operation because he was under the impression that we had agreed to this. I want to direct your attention to a section at the beginning of section 13 where it limits what is the authority that is being given in this section. So it says here that, first of all, beginning on the date the governor declared the peacetime emergency for COVID-19, I'm paraphrasing here, the Commissioner of Health is granted temporary authority as described and limited in this section to protect the health and safety of the public. And then there is this very important language. The temporary authority granted to the Commissioner in this section may only be used for purposes related to preparing for, preventing, or responding to an outbreak of COVID-19 and for preserving access to programs and services provided, licensed, or regulated by the Department of Health. So contrary to what Representative Drazkowski is proposing here, this is not just giving government the authority to just do anything and everything that they may want to do. This is limited for a specific purpose to respond to the emergency that we are in. And members, it would be great if we could micromanage every aspect of this emergency, but the reality is that we as legislators cannot. So yeah, there is a degree of trust in this. There certainly is a degree of trust, but you gotta trust somebody because we have a lot of concern about what's going on here. And we have one of the best departments of health in the country, and we have people who are doing their best to try to manage the emergency. But let's face it, there are certain restrictions in law that make it very difficult to move nimbly. And those of you who like to rail against regulation generally probably understand this pretty well, that once in a while there are regulations that get in the way. And during this emergency, it is necessary to give the department some flexibility so that they can do what's needed for Minnesotans, for their health and safety and well-being, and not have to come back to the legislature for everything. So I will ask you again to vote no on the Drazkowski amendment.
Further discussion. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, thank you, Representative Liebling. You made my argument for me. They can use it for preparing for. Anything can be used for preparing for, responding to. And members, I don't have to remind you, you guys are in these chapters regularly. You know how deep and big our chapters of law in the state of Minnesota here are. We have no idea what's in these chapters. I mean, not one person here knows everything in every one of these 17 voluminous chapters that we are handing over the authority to this government to do. Now, members, Madam Speaker, many Minnesotans are becoming weary of this emergency right now. And so with that being the case, this just foists this is a legislature foisting yet one more big power to this government during this emergency to further tell Minnesotans what they can and can't do. And not only that, as Representative Liebling pointed out, this not only begins from now going forward, it goes back to the date that the first emergency was declared on March 13th. So what it says is, government, anything you've done from then till now is okay. We're basically giving you an okay on anything you've done. Makes you wonder, has our government been following the law during this emergency or not? A very good question that I think many people wonder when they see this type of language coming in a bill like this, as important as this, taking these authorities from the people. The statutes belong to the people of the state of Minnesota. They're their laws, and handing them over to one branch of government. Madam Speaker, thank you for letting me bring this amendment forward. Members, thank you for your time in discussing this, and I urge your support of this very important amendment.
All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
State your point of order, Representative
Madam
Drazkowski.
Speaker, do the rest of the people that are on the call get an opportunity to vote on the amendment?
Representative Drazkowski, if you would have sought a roll call, there would have been a roll call.
I didn't hear the voices of the people on the call, Madam Speaker.
Representative Drazkowski, I made the call on the basis of what I heard in the chamber.
Can we have division, Madam Speaker?
The clerk will call the roll on the amendment.
Mike, you ready?
Members, the clerk will call the roll on the Drazkowski amendment. Please listen carefully for your name and answer when your name is called. And please do your best to quiet the ambient noise.
Go ahead. Acom.
No.
Acom, no. Albright.
Aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, nay.
Bonner, no. Barr.
Yes.
Barr, aye. Baker.
Aye.
Baker, aye. Becker Finn.
No.
Becker Finn, no. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
No.
Bernardi, no. Bierman.
No.
Bierman, no. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Cantrell.
No.
Cantrell, no. Carlson, A.
No.
Carlson, A. No. Carlson, L.
No.
Carlson, L. No. Christensen.
No.
Christensen, no. Claflin.
No.
Claflin, no. Considine.
Considine. No.
Considine, no. Daniels.
Daniels. Yes.
Daniels, yes. Daudt. Daudt, yes. Davids. Davids, aye. Davney. Davney, no. Dean.
No.
Dean, no. Damath.
Damath, aye.
Damath, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, aye. Eklund.
No.
Eklund, no. Edelson.
No.
Edelson, no. Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Erickson. Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
No.
Fisher, no. Franson.
Yes.
Franson, aye. Freiberg.
No.
Freiberg, no. Garofalo. Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
No.
Gomez, no. Green.
Yes.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, no. Hamilton.
Aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
No.
Hanson, no. Hassan.
No.
Hassan, no. Hausman.
Houseman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzeman. Heinzeman, aye. Her.
No.
Her, no. Hertos.
Aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
No.
Hornstein, no. Howard. Howard, no. Hewitt.
No.
Hewitt, no. Johnson.
Aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
No.
Jordan, no. Jurgens.
Aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn. Cleavorn, no. Cagle. Cagle, no. Katiza Watun.
No.
Katiza Watun, no. Kosnick.
Aye.
Kosnick, aye. Creshaw. Creshaw. Kunish Podine.
Kunis Podine, no.
Kunish Podine, no. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
No.
Lee, no. Lesh. Lesh, no. Liebling. Liebling, no. Lean.
No.
Lean, no. Lilly.
No.
Lilly, no. Lippert.
No.
Lippert, no. Lislagard.
No.
Lislagard, no. Long. Long, no. Lucero.
Yes.
Lucero, aye. Lewick.
Aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
No.
Mahoney, no. Mann.
No.
Mann, no. Mariani.
No.
Mariani, no. Marquardt.
No.
Marquardt, no. Mason. Mason, no. McDonald.
Yes.
McDonald, aye. Mecklin.
Meckland, aye.
Mecklin, aye. Miller. Miller, aye. Moeller. Moeller, no. Moran.
No.
Moran, no. Morrison.
No.
Morrison, no. Munson. Munson, aye. Murphy. Murphy. Nash.
Aye.
Nash, aye. Nelson M.
No.
Nelson M, no. Nelson N.
Nelson N, yes.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
No.
Nor, no. Nornis.
Aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
No.
Olson, no. O'Neill.
Aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
No.
Pulowski, no. Purcell.
No.
Purcell, no. Petersburg.
Aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
No.
Pinto, no. Poppy. Poppy, no. Poston.
Aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
No.
Pryor, no. Quam. Aye. Quam, aye. Richardson.
No.
Richardson, no. Robbins.
Robbins, aye.
Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
No.
Sandell, no. Sandsted.
No.
Sandsted, no. Salk.
No.
Salk, no. Schumacher.
No.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
No.
Schultz, no. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
No.
Stevenson, no. Sundin.
No.
Sundin, no. Swazinski.
Yes.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke. Tabke, no. Tice.
Aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
No.
Vang, no. Vogel.
Aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
No.
Wagenius, no. Wozlowick.
No.
Wozlowick, no. West.
Aye.
West, aye. Winkler.
No.
Winkler, no. Walgamot.
No.
Walgamot, no. Zhang Jie.
No.
Zhang Jie, no. Zhang Ti.
No.
Zhang Ti, no. Joachim.
No.
Joachim, no. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, no. Two to go back to. Crenshaw, Murphy. Go. Crenshaw and Murphy. Call him. Crenshaw. Crenshaw. Murphy. Murphy.
No. I am. No.
Murphy. Murphy votes. Murphy votes aye. No.
How is she still hilarious and she's not here?
You are muted.
And Kurt Daudt gets the last laugh on the mute button. A division having been requested, there being 57 ayes and 76 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. The speaker's sense of hearing and spidey senses are correct. Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I raise to a point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate what happened there, and you, I think, chose correctly to actually call the roll of the members, but that was a division vote, not a roll call vote. We do have a process in the chamber for requesting a roll call vote. I would ask if you could remind the chamber what the process is to request a roll call vote, and if they actually want one, that's what should be requested. I would also ask that the results of this, I assume this was a division vote, and the results of that would not be itemized in the journal.
Representative Daudt, that's my understanding. In a division, the number is recorded, but the votes of the individual members are not recorded in the journal.
That's correct.
Members, if you would like a roll call on a vote, you can ask for 15 hands. Under the current circumstances, we would be required to ask each member in turn whether they were raising their hand. But a division having been requested after the vote was called, that was in order at the time that it was raised, and we completed that process. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 4556.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker and members, I rise in opposition to this bill and bring a couple points up to members of the body. First of all, a reminder to all members that we have no budget surplus. The budget surplus is gone as a result of the contraction of economic activity in our nation. Second of all, the budget reserve that the state of Minnesota is going to be committed and is already, in fact, committed to current obligations from an enacted budget. And third and finally is the federal dollars or future federal dollars, whatever is coming from the federal government to assist us, the requests for expenditures from those funds will be 10 times the resources that we receive. So on the budget matters alone, it is important that at some point, members of some chamber step up and ask how we are paying for things. Thus far, the state of Minnesota has passed in excess of $500 million in spending. This does not even include the hundreds of millions of dollars of the workman's comp solution we had last week, which again, we still do not have legislation on how to pay for. It is a conservative estimate that we together have passed expenditures of close to $1 billion without a way to pay for it. And so going forward, the commitment I have, and I would ask members to join me, is to oppose bills unless they are paid for. Unlike the federal government, we do not have the ability to borrow money. We must balance the budget. It is our constitutional duty And I would ask members in that reason and going forward for future bills that have spending to oppose bills unless they are paid for. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd had just a couple of questions about the bill, and I'm wondering if a couple of different people would yield to a question. First, Representative Mueller.
Representative Mueller will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Mueller, I kind of gave you the heads up I was going to ask this question, but some of the members of our caucus had a concern on this, the cost of living adjustment for child support, and the fact that the legislature is saying we're going to allow this to be delayed as far as the time that you have to get in to have a hearing on that. And one of the concerns was that when a person is finally able to get in to have their hearing, maybe it's October or November, and the judge says, well, you know, now that we're here and having this hearing, yeah, we're going to go ahead and assess this almost 5% increased COLA to you, but you haven't been paying it. So you're going to have to pay all the back and any penalties that have accrued during that period of time. And I'm just wondering if you could address that concern. Thank you.
Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Scott. After we had that question in committee hearing, I did talk to our experts about that. And they said that there really are no fines or fees that get triggered if people don't pay that extra 4.7%. And so this really isn't going to be an issue at all. If anything, there might be a little interest, but that would just be on the 4.7%. So if someone can't afford to pay the increased cost of living adjustment, then they're not going to be triggering all of the other mechanisms to collect child support that would happen, say, if somebody falls into arrears or doesn't pay at all.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Mueller, for that answer. And I'm wondering if Representative Liebling would yield for a question.
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Liebling, there seems to be some concern within our caucus, and we, of course, can't have everybody here on the floor with us today, but concerning the sections of the bill that have to do with the Department of Health, is there any authority granted to the Department of Health regarding requiring people to have immunizations if their parents or they themselves do not wish to have an immunization?
Representative Liebling.
Madam Speaker and Representative Scott, I'm not aware of that, but what is being waived here is authority related to COVID-19. It is not related to measles, it is not related to diphtheria, or any of the other things for which we vaccinate. So I don't, as I read the bill, there is no blanket authority for changing immunization policy. That's my take on it.
Representative Scott. Further discussion to the bill. The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And would Representative Liebling yield for a question or two?
She will yield. Representative Quam.
My specific curiosity is, in all of the chapters are allowed for the commissioner to take action. Can you confirm that this bill will not grant the commissioner the power to ignore people's religious freedoms or other constitutional rights or the rights of their children?
Representative Liebling.
Madam Speaker and Representative Quam and members, I think that the First Amendment is kind of a higher authority than what we've got here. I don't think that's the intention. And I suppose that there could be some dispute about whether that is in fact happening in some cases. For example, I know there's been a lot of debate around the country about stay-at-home orders that effectively put the kibosh on religious gatherings. But remember that under our Constitution, there are even rights that are enumerated in the Constitution are not absolute rights. There are time, place, and manner restrictions that are upheld by the courts. So I don't think there's any intent, and I don't think there will be any infringement on anybody's religious rights. However, religious rights do have limitations, just like all other rights, and I can't predict that we won't be debating this at some point.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I want it on the record what is and is not intended in this bill, so that if a judge or someone in the other branch is trying to interpret legislative intent, that it is clear that legislative intent is not meant to grant the power to ignore parental rights, religious rights, or any other constitutionally related rights. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion to the bill. The member from Carver, Representative Bowe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have just a couple of quick questions, if I may, and I'm not sure which member would want to address that, but the first one is I see it on line 2 of the corrected, or I'm sorry, page 2 of the corrected version, line 2.10. So that might be like section 1, subsection 5, perhaps. It's talking about the open meeting law, and in particular line 5, or subsection 5, line 2.10, it says each location at which a member of the body is present is open and accessible to the public. And as I read that,
Representative Cagle will yield when you're done with your question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I read that, I question whether this would also apply in a member's own home, if they happen to be home recovering from surgery, et cetera, access to the public.
Representative Cagle will yield. Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Bowe. So that is our current law, and if you read below, there is actually, we're making exemptions to the open meeting laws. So if currently right now, anybody who is participating in government has to be in an open meeting in the area where there's open meeting. And so what we're doing is we're actually adding an exemption so that if somebody is under quarantine, that they are able to participate in local government through interactive television at the advice of their physicians.
Representative Bowe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, that's good, but it does make the exception that it can only happen 3 times in a calendar year, and certainly we could easily surpass that, I would imagine. So that is just a point that might require further study. In addition, I have a second question, if I may, Madam Speaker. And that is on page 10. In this particular section, we're looking at federal transit funds coming down to Met Council and Metro Transit, and I'm not sure which member that would be for.
Representative Tabke will yield. Representative Bowe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Tabke. As you may know as well, suburban opt-out transit providers are frequently struggling with Met Council and Metro Transit for funding, and so I would just like to see the need for Metro Transit to share these funding dollars to be a little more clearly spelled out, because protective equipment, safety training, frequent cleaning of transit vehicles, that's all very important, and I'd hate to see the suburban opt-outs lose that funding which should be shared. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Tabke will yield. Representative Tabke.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure that I heard a question in there, but there was, this money will flow to the opt-outs as well, if that's what you're asking, Representative Bowe.
That is. Thank you.
Any further discussion to the bill? Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. We will, members, proceed to the roll call on the bill, and members who are at home on the phone can get ready to have a quiet environment, and you will be unmuted for the roll call.
Acom.
Aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
No.
Albright, no. Anderson.
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, aye.
Bonner, aye. Barr.
No.
Barr, no. Baker.
Aye.
Baker, aye. Becker Finn.
Aye.
Becker Finn, aye. Bennett.
No.
Bennett, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Aye.
Bierman, aye. Bull. Bull, aye. Brand.
Aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Aye.
Carlson, A. Aye. Carlson, L.
Aye.
Carlson, L. Aye. Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine. Aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, no.
Daniels, no. Daudt. Daudt, aye. Davids. Davids, no. Davney. Davney, aye. Dean.
Aye.
Dean, aye. Damath.
Yes.
Damath, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, no. Eklund. Eklund. Edelson.
Aye.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson. Erickson, no. Fabian.
Aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
No.
Franzen, no. Freiberg.
Yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo. Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
No.
Green, no. Grossel.
No.
Grossel, no. Grunhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Grunhagen, no. Gunther.
No.
Gunther, no. Haley.
Aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
No.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman. Heinzman, no. Her.
Yes.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, no.
Hertos, no. Hornstein.
Aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard. Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson. Johnson.
Aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens. Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn. Cleavorn, aye. Cagle. Cagle, aye. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Kosnick.
Kosnick, no.
Kosnick, no. Kreshaw.
Aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish-Podine.
Aye.
Kunish-Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
Aye.
Lee, aye. Lesh. Lesh, aye. Liebling. Liebling, aye. Lean.
Aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislagard.
Aye.
Lislagard, aye. Long. Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann.
Aye.
Mann, aye. Mariani.
Aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason. Mason, aye. McDonald. McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Mecklin, no.
Mecklin, no. Miller. Miller, no. Moeller. Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison.
Aye.
Morrison, aye. Munson. Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Nelson M.
Aye.
Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Pawlowski.
Aye.
Pawlowski, aye. Purcell.
Aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
No.
Pearson, no. Pinto.
Aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy. Poppy, aye. Poston.
Aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam. Quam, no. Richardson.
Aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins.
Robin, no.
Robbins, no. Runbeck. Runbeck, no. Sandell.
Yes.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
Yes.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher.
Yes.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, no. Stevenson.
Aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Aye.
Sundin, Aye. Swazinski.
No.
Swazinski, no. Tabke. Tabke, aye. Tice.
Aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
No.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Aye.
Wagenius, aye. Waslawick.
Aye.
Waslawick, aye. West.
Aye.
West, aye. Winkler.
Aye.
Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott. Aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie.
Aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hortman. Speaker Hortman, aye. Eklund.
Aye.
Eklund, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 103 ayes and 31 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions online. If there's no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail.
Hartman introduces House Concurrent Resolution Number 6, a House Concurrent Resolution relating to the peacetime emergency declared by Governor Tim Walz by Executive Order 20-01. The concurrent resolution is being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration. House Concurrent Resolution Number 7. Winkler is introducing House Concurrent Resolution Number 7, a House Concurrent Resolution relating to adjournment of the House of Representatives and Senate until the public interest warrants reconvening. The concurrent resolution is being sent to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration. Drazkowski is introducing House Concurrent Resolution Number 8, a House Concurrent Resolution relating to Minnesota's peacetime emergency, terminating the peacetime emergency pursuant to the authority granted under Minnesota Statute Section 12.31, Subdivision 2, Paragraph B. Drazkowski moves that the rules be so far suspended that House Concurrent Resolution Number 8 be now considered and placed upon its adoption.
Representative Drazkowski, to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This House concurrent resolution ends the governor's peacetime emergency. If it's passed by the House today, it goes to the Senate for their concurrence. This will allow the legislature to develop plans for Minnesota going forward with the governor and pass them into law, which is the right way to proceed. After we pass that legislation, the Senate can then pass the concurrence on this particular resolution. Members, when the peacetime emergency was declared, we didn't know what to expect. The governor said we would lose 74,000 Minnesotans if we didn't shut down the economy. He told us that if we did shut it down, we would lose 55,000 Minnesota lives because the curve would be flattened, avoiding the overrunning of our hospital ICU beds. Governor Walz said that the sole purpose of his subsequent executive orders was to flatten the curve, to spread out the expression of the virus in the population over time, for the sole purpose of taking pressure off of our state's ICU facilities. The demand never came close. The curve is flat as a pancake. Thankfully, neither of those two horrible pictures that the governor painted to convince Minnesotans to shut down the state never happened. Now we hear the chief executive talking about continuing his shutdown until the disease is defeated, a completely different objective than what he originally communicated to be the reason for the shutdown. If you look at our neighboring states, you will find that the realities of how states handled this disease appear very counterfactual. Every one of the 5 states that have not instituted stay-at-home orders against their people has a death rate per million people due to COVID-19 equal to or lower than Minnesota does. North Dakota, South Dakota, and Iowa, states very much like us, directly border Minnesota. They have decided to protect their people and their economy. We can do the same. The South Dakota governor said, "The people themselves are primarily responsible for their safety. They are the ones that are entrusted with expansive freedoms." Members, each and every life lost in our state is sacred. My heart goes out to the more than 70 families who have lost loved ones over the past month, as well as those of over 3,500 people that have lost life from other causes during the same period. While helping people help themselves and live healthy lives is something we have been and should be focusing on, it's not the only thing. We also need to protect the economy. Madam Speaker, in our efforts to save lives, we are killing livelihoods. In just the past few weeks, the governor has ordered businesses closed and shut people up inside their homes. Our economy has been smoked. The state budget projection of $1.5 billion surplus is now likely a gaping deficit. I heard 14% of Minnesotans have filed for unemployment in 3 weeks. In my district, farmers' milk prices have been slashed, hog and beef prices are in the tank, and the fact that there's not a market for their finished animals has placed some farmers in positions that involve very difficult decisions about what they are going to do with the newborn offspring that they may no longer have room for. What about our hospitals? We've cleared them out. Many of them are nearly shut down. Tens of thousands of doctors, nurses, and dentists are unemployed. How are we going to fight this virus, or the next virus, for that matter, if our hospitals are broke? The executive orders have divided Minnesotans into essential and non-essential workers. Truth is, all Minnesota workers are essential in getting our economy going again. Throughout this executive order, about 80% of people have been working all along. It's time for the other 20% to go to work too. These orders do not make sense at all. People are allowed to go to a union meeting, but not a church meeting. They can go get an abortion, but not a kidney transplant. They can buy booze and medical marijuana, but they can't camp in a state forest. If we don't terminate the governor's emergency powers, we'll be ceding the authority of the legislature and the voice of the people to one person. It's the legislature's role as the voice of the people to set state policy, not one chief executive. In 1964, Ronald Reagan said in his speech, A Time for Choosing, he said, "The founding fathers knew a government can't control the economy without controlling people, and they knew when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. So we have come to a time for choosing." And members, we have come to a time for choosing. The people of our country and state are fighting COVID-19, and they will continue to fight it. Over the past 2 months, Minnesotans have learned what they need to do to protect themselves and their neighbors from this particular virus. Our doctors, the media, and our governments have all come together to help people understand what we need to do. Stay home if you're not feeling well, wash your hands often, don't gather in groups, clean hard surfaces, and keep distances from people are among the things we need to do to minimize the spread of the virus. Continued education will be part of the long-term strategy and role of government. It will not be forcing people to stay home, closing businesses, and stomping out civil rights. Members, it's time to get working on that strategy now. We need to remove the boot of government from the neck of our economy and give the people their freedom back. Madam Speaker, it's time to begin ending this peacetime emergency. The cure has become worse than the disease. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and members. I encourage your support for the resolution.
Discussion. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to the motion to suspend the rules and end the peacetime emergency. Members, we just passed, on a bipartisan basis, legislation that helps in the fourth step to help Minnesota deal with the pandemic and provide state agencies with the authority that they need in order to combat this pandemic. We passed legislation that will help Minnesotans, average Minnesotans, businesses, courts, state agencies, farmers, local governments, uninsured Minnesotans who are food insecure, and many, many more. It's the fourth package, and the legislature has managed to make itself relevant in an emergency by working together on a bipartisan basis and a bicameral basis in order to enact security measures. We will continue to support Governor Walz and his emergency action to protect the lives of Minnesotans. We in the legislature have adapted by creating remote hearings, by arranging our business here on the floor so that we can meet safely and still do the people's business. Due to the excellent work of our chief clerk staff and the sergeant-at-arms and IT staff, we were able to adapt and move forward, and we have done so with a high degree of cooperation amongst ourselves. We, the legislature, continue to do the work of the people. We at the legislature continue to be able to monitor and provide oversight of the administration, and we have authority in Chapter 12 of the law that the governor has used to assert the peacetime emergency to end that peacetime emergency when we see fit. But members, we are, through this motion, trying to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The fruits of the work of the Department of Health, the University of Minnesota, the Mayo Clinic, the governor of the state, his agencies, the legislature in support of those policy actions and the necessary decisions that have been made, and most of all through the responsible people of the state of Minnesota who are complying with public health recommendations, are fighting and defeating COVID-19, at least as best we can. Minnesota ranks first in the nation in cases per capita. That means we are doing better than every other state in controlling this disease because we are listening to public health professionals, and we, as average citizens and as legislators, are supporting their recommendations. Representative Drazkowski compared us to South Dakota. What he didn't mention is that they just had one of the largest COVID-19 outbreaks in the nation at the pork processing plant, an outbreak that has forced that plant to shut down and has created a threat to our nation's food supply because they didn't take it seriously. The governor of South Dakota did not take COVID-19 sufficiently seriously to put in place protections to protect that plant and the people of the state. The mayor of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a Republican, has done the maximum under his power to try to shut his city down and protect its citizens from a state that is doing nothing. The fact of the matter is that we are having success in Minnesota because of the joint work of the legislature, the governor, the administration, the people of Minnesota, and the institutions of our state. We have the top professionals in health in the nation, or among them we have top institutions. We have wonderful people. We will not be sure on the front end, and we will continue to deal with uncertainty about the total number of lives that will be lost due to COVID-19 in Minnesota. We don't know the number of cases, but we do have excellent models showing most likely scenarios. We are extending out the peak of the disease into July. We are providing our healthcare providers the opportunity to create the number of ICU beds necessary. We're providing flexibility in our healthcare system so that we can maximize our resources to fight this disease. We are going to be top in the nation because we are doing the right thing, not because we are quitting. The motion to suspend the rules and end the peacetime emergency is a motion to quit fighting the disease. We have two motions coming up, first from Representative Drazkowski and the second from Representative Daudt to end the peacetime emergency. I am shocked that with lives on the line in Minnesota, with thousands of our citizens at risk of death and certainly far more at risk of very serious illness, that we are trying to end the measures, the very measures that are allowing us to outperform the rest of the country in dealing with this crisis. I don't know what it will take, Representative Drazkowski, until you take this seriously. I hope we do not reach the point that people will not believe that this is serious until they find themselves lying on the ground choking in their own mucus.
Madam Speaker.
Representative Davids.
Point of order.
Purpose?
I would say the majority leader is out of order questioning Representative Drazkowski's intention. If you would remind the body not to do that, it's against House rules.
Representative, I don't find the point of order well taken. Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. We are living in an unimaginable time. We live in a time when broad powers have been unilaterally executed to regulate the lives of Minnesotans. A time when people's freedoms were taken and many people forced to live in complete isolation. A time when people have been arrested for playing catch with their children or playing cards with friends on private property. A time when government told a minority of Minnesotans, about 20% of them, that they no longer have permission to go to work, but at the same time allowing a majority of Minnesotans to continue in their jobs. We live in a time where government is not allowing people to gather to worship their God. A time when families are not allowed to say goodbye or mourn or celebrate or people to even protest together. We live in a time when government has started to ration health care for Minnesotans, determining whose health care takes priority over over the other health care. We live in a time when government encourages citizens to report and shame their neighbors rather than elicit compassion or understanding for what their circumstances are. We live in a time where local papers are publicly naming and shaming people who question decisions of their government. And we live in a time when personal responsibility is no longer valued. This is a time when our Constitution and our freedoms and our democratic process are most important. Our Constitution was written to protect freedoms for everyone, all the time, not just when it's easy. Just as the risks of the virus are not the same for everyone in every community, the detrimental effects, the costs of our actions of government is not falling evenly on the shoulders of Minnesotans and in each community. Our three branches of government are meant to stop the concentration of power for an extended period of time within one single branch. It's time that this legislature take back the power and stop sitting idly by while one person rules our state. It may not be easy to act on these decisions, and it's certainly politically less risky, but just because it's easy doesn't make it right. Never should Minnesotans accept a legislature that hands over its powers and obligations for months on end. It's our job and our duty to actually listen to Minnesotans, balance the risks, and protect the minorities, and try to find the best path forward. It's our duty as legislators to question everything and continually seek better solutions. So no matter if you support opening the state or you support the executive actions of our governor, you should want to participate as legislators. We're not an authoritarian government, so it's time for the legislature to take its power back. You've all heard from business owners and employees in your district who've lost everything, who are calling you and they're at wit's end. The government has taken this from people. The government has taken this, and unlike taking a house to build a highway, we don't give them due process. We don't give them just compensation. We give them a phone number that nobody answers. We give them an application that nobody gets back to them on. COVID-19 is not going away. Anytime we open our state, we will be opening our state with risk, and there will inevitably be deaths. However, continuing as we are also presents deadly risks. The truth is, we can't sustain our current position. This is a reality. Our economy and our supply chains and our health and happiness and our security depend on our state reopening. Our stay-at-home order pushed the peak out, like Representative Drazkowski and Representative Winkler said. It allowed our hospitals time to prepare. They have had time to prepare. We have the best healthcare system in the country, arguably in the world. People come here because we have great healthcare. We don't have the same population size or the density they have in New York. We need to find a balance between the risks presented by COVID-19 and the risks caused by our reaction to COVID-19. So the people of the state of Minnesota need to also participate in finding the solutions. Government can't solve the problem. If our state remains in a place where freedoms do not flourish, where people don't have a voice, people aren't allowed to work, where we continue to destroy businesses, it's going to remain a state of stagnation, of fear, of resentment. It's time that we take our state and our freedoms back. Members, I support this resolution, and I encourage you to vote yes.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, Representative Winkler, Majority Leader Winkler, you actually made the point for this motion by Representative Drazkowski when you said the legislature is meeting. We are doing the things that we're supposed to be doing. Now, you tried to create fear in your message in people. I can tell you the people in rural Minnesota are angry right now. We know these are historic times. We say that in a lot of different ways, and we all understand that. We have a pandemic that's worldwide, unlike anything we've ever seen before. A pastor told me, just to put in perspective, when was the last time that the entire world was affected by something like this? And I said, when? And he said, the flood from Noah's times. We've had world wars. We've had pandemics in different areas. We had the plague in Europe. We've had different things, but we've never been so greatly affected. And I do want to take this time to know the people that have lost their loved ones from this. I mourn for them. For the people who are hospitalized, and I've heard stories. My wife is a nurse. My nephew is a nurse. I have friends who are doctors. And when someone contracts this and they're in the hospital, they're very alone. It's out of control. They basically just have to see, and we need to recognize that. This has had a great effect on our economy. There's a business person who called me this morning and said, what can we do? They bought this business in less than the last year, and it was a thriving business out in our area. And the work that they do is essential for our area. But because of the sickness, because of the governor's orders, because of so many different things, they're facing something that was not their own doing. They're facing probably closing their business. Members, I spend every day, 7 days a week, answering to emails, phone calls, texts, running into someone at the store. And these stories are very, very real, and I know that all of you are receiving these same sort of calls. This has been a great disruption to our society. I think it's going to be a long way coming back. We've had to make a lot of tough decisions. Here, the governor's had to make tough decisions. Our counties, our cities, everyone's had to work hard because of these uncharted waters. But I've seen some good things. I've seen us come together. I've seen Republicans and Democrats come together on this. I've seen the House and Senate come together. I've seen us all working with the governor's office. Bipartisan, bicameral, unified towards doing this. I supported the governor's emergency powers in the beginning, and I agreed with many of the ones that he established. I think we could have addressed issues with restaurants and bars differently. I don't think the stay-at-home order should have been a one-size-fits-all across the state, but those are just my opinions. Members, when a crisis comes, we can argue those opinions, but one thing we should not do is veer away from the basic principles of our great nation and our great state. Now, in a crisis, whether it's in our family or it's at the state or national level, whatever crisis we're facing, there tends to be there's a tendency to steer away from the basic principles by which we operate. You know, if a kid is sick, he might be able to stay up and sleep in mom and dad's bed, or he miss a little bit extra school. Here in the state, we've had to do some things that kind of change the rules a little bit. Again, we're in uncharted waters, and I understand that, okay? And so we've had to do some things, and there was a time for that. But members, our state and our nation abide by constitutions. And those constitutions call for a separation of powers. And while there might have been a period of time to where we had to exercise those executive emergency powers, that time has ended. Now, members, in closing, while I don't agree with everything that the governor has done, including the extended stay at home, I want to make a point. That's simply my one opinion. But that's one opinion against the opinion of the governor. And his responsibilities are great, I understand that. But members, we have 201 legislators that can form good policy, and then the governor can sign into law. Members, it's time to get back to the proper way of doing business. It's time to let the people of Minnesota have their proper representation here in St. Paul, and we can do this. I ask for your support of the suspension of rules so that we can discuss how we steer us back to the proper government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member from Anoka, Representative Barr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm not going to rehash what the other three members of my caucus have already brought up. The only 2 points that I would like to add on to that, we're pushing the peak to July. We're moving this back. We're postponing when we will hit peak. What we should be doing is looking to move the peak as close to current as possible so we can get on the backside of this. We should be looking at what other countries and other states have done. Majority Leader Winkler brought up South Dakota. They had a spike in one spot. This is true. Look at Italy. They had a spike in Italy. They had a mass problem. Everybody is scared of Italy. 99% of the deaths in Italy had at least one underlying health issue. 48% of those that died in Italy had 3 underlying health issues. New York City, the main cause, 78% of the people that died of COVID-19 virus in New York City were considered obese. There are multiple things that factor into this, and we should be looking at what everybody else has done, is currently doing, and learn from other legislators, other governing bodies. The fact that we want to try and push the peak out to July suggests to me that we want to keep the economy closed until July. There won't be an economy left to come back to if it's closed in July. In 2008, we saw, after the 2008 economic disaster, we saw a spike in suicides, drug abuse, divorces, every bad thing that we have going on in our socially bad thing that goes on inside of our, in the communities, we saw a spike in that. So there was some researchers at Yale University went back and they studied throughout history economic downturns, and they could draw a very straight correlated line between suicides and the unemployment rate. We are driving the unemployment rate. Representative Miller, I believe, mentioned that it was 14% is what it's where we're sitting at right now. 14% of the state is unemployed. The St. Louis Fed has predicted the third quarter of this year we will be looking at a national unemployment rate of 32%, which eclipses by almost 7% anything we saw during the Great Depression. We will, if we do not find a better way to a more scalpeled or precision approach instead of a carpet bomb approach to solving this problem, we will see more deaths via suicide, drug overdose, domestic abuse. By far, it will far eclipse the deaths from COVID-19 virus. And with that, members, I ask for your support to take up the resolution to debate the measure. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion. Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. While I certainly appreciate and support us ending the peacetime emergency and turning us back into a co-equal branch of government where the governor has to consult with us and work with us on moving forward and getting through this. Unfortunately, this resolution has some severe problems as a result, I think, unanswered questions. The advice that I'm getting is that if we pass a resolution just ending the peacetime emergency, that all of the executive orders cease immediately. I know there's been some discussion about then taking up some bills to kind of answer some of those questions, but we're not even at a place in our agenda where we can take up bills. There aren't bills introduced today that we could take up to do that. I just wanted to stand up and for those members who support ending the peacetime emergency, I have a resolution that I've actually been working on for some weeks. I've been having conversations with the 4 leaders regularly about us planning ending the peacetime emergency and what would happen afterwards. The resolution of mine will come up after this, and mine is much more orderly. It deals with some of that stuff. If we pass this one, school kids will be back in school tomorrow. There will be just a ton of business filings and things that are kind of unknown how we would respond. In mine, I dealt with all of those issues and how we would respond to those. So certainly just want to invite folks to their attention to the fact that there is another amendment or resolution coming up that will do this same thing, but does it in a much more orderly way.
Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you. I'll just respond to a couple of things that were said. First of all, Majority Leader Winkler, if the Smithfield plan had been in Minnesota or China, in those cases, they would have still needed to produce meat. You would add the same thing. As a matter of fact, the death rate per million people in South Dakota is half of what it is here in Minnesota. Representative Daudt, I outlined in the early part of my introduction of this motion that just in case you didn't hear it, the way a House concurrent resolution works is that after we pass it, it goes to the Senate. It requires 2 bodies to pass the resolution before it goes into effect. As a matter of fact, it has to then be recorded by the Secretary of State and delivered to the governor after that. But what would happen if we pass this resolution today, which is very well written, nonpartisan staff helped with it. I haven't had anybody give negative feedback about the structure of the resolution, so it's actually in very good shape. And as a matter of fact, we would pass this resolution today, it will make its way to the Senate, and then when it gets there, the Senate can hold the resolution, work with us for 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month, or however it takes. Hopefully it doesn't take 1 month, but maybe an hour a day or a week, and help us get the plan for Minnesota going forward ready to go in concurrence with the governor pass that into law, and then the Senate will pass a resolution and end the peacetime emergency. Urge your support for the motion to bring this resolution to the floor. Madam Speaker, I would ask that we do a roll call with the people on the phone. Thank you.
So Pat, he's asking for a roll call. We need to roll call whether there's 15 hands, right? Right. So should we just ask whether there's 15 hands for a roll call? So the clerk will put the question to members of whether there are 15 hands for a roll call. Representative Drazkowski is requesting a roll call. And the clerk will call the roll. And members, if you say yes, it is the same thing as if you were in the chamber and you were raising your hand. So the clerk will take the roll on the request for a roll call.
Madam Speaker?
Representative Drazkowski.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to withdraw that request, and actually, when we get to the point, I'd like to call division if I could do that.
Representative Daudt.
Madam Speaker, I'd request a roll call, and I'd invite members not to raise their hands right now.
Representative Daudt requests a roll call. To determine whether there are 15 hands, the clerk will take the roll.
Just 1 second. I'll have to go through the whole thing. Ready? Acom.
No.
Acom, no. Albright.
No.
Albright, no. Anderson.
No.
Anderson, no. Backer.
Yes.
Backer, yes. Bonner.
Bonner. No.
Bonner, no. Barr.
Yes.
Barr, aye. Baker.
No.
Baker, no. Becker Finn.
Nope.
Becker Finn, no. Bennett.
No.
Bennett, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, no.
Bernardi, no. Bierman.
No.
Bierman, no. Bow. Bow, no. Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Cantrell.
No.
Cantrell, no. Carlson, A.
Carlson A. No.
Carlson, A. No. Carlson, L.
No.
Carlson, L. No. Christensen.
No.
Christensen, no. Claflin.
No.
Claflin, no. Considine.
Considine. No.
Considine, no. Daniels.
No.
Daniels, no. Daudt. Daudt. Davids. Daudt, no. Davids. Davids, no. Davney. Davney, no. Dean.
Dean. No.
Dean, no. Damath.
No.
Damath, no. Detmer. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, yes. Eklund.
No.
Eklund, no. Edelson.
No.
Edelson, no. Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Erickson.
Yes.
Erickson, yes. Fabian.
No.
Fabian, no. Fisher. Fisher.
No.
Fisher, no. Franzen.
Yes.
Franzen, yes. Freiberg.
No.
Freiberg, no. Garofalo. Garofalo, no. Gomez.
No.
Gomez, no. Green.
No.
Green, no. Grossel.
No.
Grossel, no. Grunhagen.
Yes.
Grunhagen, aye. Gunther.
No.
Gunther, no. Haley.
No.
Haley, no. Halverson. Halverson, no. Hamilton.
No.
Hamilton, no. Hanson.
No.
Hanson, no. Hassan.
No.
Hassan, no. Hausman.
Houseman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Yes.
Heinrich, yes. Heinzeman. Heinzeman, no. Her.
No.
Her, no. Hertos.
Yes.
Hertos, yes. Hornstein.
No.
Hornstein, no. Howard. Howard, no. Hewitt.
No.
Hewitt, no. Johnson.
Who else would be?
Johnson.
Cosby votes no.
Johnson, no. Jordan.
No.
Jordan, no. Jurgens.
You have your speaker on, dude. No.
Jurgens.
No.
Jurgens, no. Keel.
No.
Keel, no. Cleavorn. Cleavorn, no. Cagill. Cagill, no. Katiza Watun.
No.
Katiza Watun, no. Kosnick.
Cosmic, no.
Kosnick, no. Kreshaw. Kreshaw.
No.
Kreshaw, no. Kunish Podine.
No.
Kunish Podine, no. Lehman.
Lehman, no.
Lehman, no. Lee.
No.
Lee, no. Lesh. Lesh, no. Liebling. Liebling, no. Lean.
No.
Lean, no. Lilly.
No.
Lilly, no. Lippert.
No.
Lippert, no. Lislegard.
No.
Lislegard, no. Long. Long, no. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Lewick.
No.
Lewick, no. Mahoney.
No.
Mahoney, no. Mann.
No.
Mann, no. Mariani.
No.
Mariani, no. Marquardt.
No.
Marquardt, no. Mason. Mason, no. McDonald. McDonald.
No.
McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Mecklen, yes.
Mecklin, yes. Miller. Miller, aye. Moeller. Moeller, no. Moran.
Moran, no.
Moran, no. Morrison.
No.
Morrison, no. Munson. Munson, aye. Murphy. Murphy.
No.
Murphy, no. Nash. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Nelson M.
No.
Nelson M, no. Nelson N.
No.
Nelson N. No. New. New. No. Nor.
No.
Nor. No. Nornis.
No.
Nornis. No. Novotny.
No.
Novotny. No. O'Driscoll. No. O'Driscoll. No. Olson.
No.
Olson. No. O'Neill.
No.
O'Neill. No. Pulowski.
No.
Pulowski. No. Purcell.
No.
Purcell. No. Petersburg.
No.
Petersburg. No. Pearson. Pearson. Pinto.
No.
Pinto. No. Poppy. Poppy. No. Poston.
Yes.
Poston. Aye. Pryor.
No.
Pryor. No. Quam. Quam. Richardson.
No.
Richardson. No. Robbins.
Robbins, no.
Robbins. No. Runbeck. Runbeck. No. Sandell.
No.
Sandell. No. Sandsted.
No.
Sandsted. No. Sauk.
No.
Sauk. No. Schumacher.
No.
Schumacher. No. Schultz.
No.
Schultz. No. Scott. 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 No. Stevenson.
No.
Stevenson. No. Sundin.
No.
Sundin. No. Swazinski. Swazinski.
No.
Swazinski. No. Tabke. Tabke. No. Tice.
No.
Tice. No. Torkelson.
No.
Torkelson. No. Erdahl.
No.
Erdahl. No. Vang.
No.
Vang. No. Vogel.
No.
Vogel. No. Wagenius.
Genius, no.
Wagenius. No. Wozlowick.
No.
Wozlowick. No. West.
No.
West. No. Winkler. Winkler. No. Walgamot.
No.
Walgamot. No. Zhang Jie.
No.
Zhang Jie. No. Zhang Ti.
No.
Zhang Ti. No. Joachim.
No.
Joachim. No. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman. No.
There were not 15 hands for a roll call. Representative Drazkowski.
Madam Speaker.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think this is a point of order, maybe just a point of...
State your point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Earlier in this time that we've spent here, there was a suspension of the rules on the first bill that we passed, and there was no request for a roll call on that. We just did a roll call on what we refer to as the insulin bill. What's the difference here?
The difference is we were suspending the Constitution to pass legislation, and this is a suspension of a House rule that can be done by voice vote. So now it will be an oral vote And then after that, a division is in order. If a division is called, there will be a roll call, there will be a number produced, but there will not be printed in the journal a record of the votes. All those in favor of the motion to suspend, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion does not prevail. Division having been requested, the clerk will call the roll on the Drazkowski motion to suspend for the purposes of a division.
Acom.
No.
Acom, no. Albright.
No.
Albright, no. Anderson.
No.
Anderson, no. Backer.
Yes.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, no.
Bonner, no. Barr. Barr, aye. Baker.
No.
Baker, no. Becker Finn.
No.
Becker Finn, no. Bennett.
No.
Bennett, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, no.
Bernardi, no. Bierman.
Bierman, no.
Bierman, no. Bow. Bow. Bow, aye. Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Cantrell.
No.
Cantrell, no. Carlson, A.
No.
Carlson, A, no. Carlson, L.
No.
Carlson, L, no. Christensen. Christensen. Claflin.
No.
Claflin, no. Considine.
Considine, no.
Considine, no. Daniels.
No.
Daniels, no. Daudt. Daudt. Davids. Davids. Davney. Davney, no. Dean.
No.
Dean, no. Damath.
No.
Damath, no. Detmer. Detmer. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, aye. Eklund.
No.
Eklund, no. Edelson.
No.
Edelson, no. Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Erickson. Erickson, no. Fabian.
No.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
No.
Fisher, no. Franzen.
Yes.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
No.
Freiberg, no. Garofalo. Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
No.
Gomez, no. Green.
No.
Green, no. Grossel.
Yes.
Grossel, aye. Grunhagen.
Yes.
Grunhagen, aye. Gunther.
No.
Gunther, no. Haley. Haley. Halverson. Halverson, no. Hamilton.
No.
Hamilton, no. Hanson. Hanson, no. Hassan.
No.
Hassan, no. Hausman.
Houseman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Aye.
Heinrich.
Aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzemann. Heinzemann, no. Her.
No.
Her, no. Hertas.
Hurtas, aye.
Hertas, aye. Hornstein.
No.
Hornstein, no. Howard. Howard, no. Hewitt.
No.
Hewitt, no. Johnson.
No.
Johnson, no. Jordan.
No.
Jordan, no. Jurgens.
No.
Jurgens, no. Keel.
No.
Keel, no. Cleavorn. Cleavorn, no. Cagle. Cagle, no. Katiza Watun.
No.
Katiza Watun, no. Kosnick.
No.
Kosnick, no. Kreshaw. Kreshaw. Kunish-Podine.
No.
Kunish-Podine, no. Lehman.
No.
Lehman, no. Lee.
No.
Lee, no. Lesh. Lesh, no. Liebling. Liebling, no. Lean.
No.
Lean, no. Lilly.
No.
Lilly, no. Lippert.
No.
Lippert, no. Lislagard.
No.
Lislagard, no. Long. Long, no. Lucero.
Yes, in all capital letters.
Lucero, aye. Lewick.
No.
Lewick, no. Mahoney.
No.
Mahoney, no. Mann.
No.
Mann, no. Mariani. Mariani, no. Markwart.
No.
Markwart, no. Mason.
I'm not responding.
Mason. Mason, no. McDonald. McDonald. Mecklen.
Mecklen, yes.
Mecklen, aye. Miller. Miller, aye. Moeller. Moeller, no. Moran.
Moran, no.
Moran, no. Morrison.
No.
Morrison, no. Munson. Munson, aye. Murphy.
No.
Murphy, no. Nash.
No.
Nash, no. Nelson M.
No.
Nelson M, no. Nelson N. Nelson N. New. New. Nor.
No.
Nor, no. Nornis.
No.
Nornis, no. Novotny.
No.
Novotny, no. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, no. Olson.
No.
Olson, no. O'Neill. O'Neill. Pawlowski.
No.
Pawlowski, no. Purcell.
No.
Purcell, no. Petersburg.
No.
Petersburg, no. Pearson. Pearson. Pinto.
No.
Pinto, no. Poppy. Poppy, no. Poston.
Yes.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
No.
Pryor, no. Quam. Quam.
No.
Quam, no. Okay, who's? Something came through on that. Richardson.
No.
Richardson, no. Robbins.
No.
Robbins, no. Runbeck. Runbeck, no. Sandell.
No.
Sandell, no. Sandsted.
No.
Sandsted, no. Sauk.
No.
Sauk, no. Schumacher.
No.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
No.
Schultz, no. Scott. Scott, no. Stevenson.
No.
Stevenson, no. Sundin.
No.
Sundin, no. Swazinski. Swazinski. Tabke. Tabke, no. Tice.
No.
Tice, no. Torkelson.
No.
Torkelson, no. Erdahl.
No.
Erdahl, no. Vang. Vang. Vogel.
No.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
No.
Wagenius, no. Wozlowick.
No.
Wozlowick, no. West.
No.
West, no. Winkler. Winkler, no. Walgamot. Walgamot.
No.
Walgamot, no. Zhang Jie.
No.
Zhang Jie, no. Zhang Ti.
No.
Zhang Ti, no. Joachim.
No.
Joachim, no. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, no. Division, yeah. A voice came through.
There being 15 ayes and 105 nays, the motion did not prevail.
House Concurrent Resolution Number 8, is being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration. Daudt introduces House Concurrent Resolution number 9, a House Concurrent Resolution relating to Executive Orders 20-01 and 20-35, terminating a peacetime emergency declaration. Daudt moves that the rules be so far suspended that House Concurrent Resolution number 9 be now considered and placed upon its adoption.
Representative Daudt, to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Appreciate your attention. I understand that the day is getting a little bit long, but the business that we're doing here is important. And I know that many of you have constituents at home who are concerned about COVID-19, about our health and our safety, about their jobs, about our economy, about the revenues to the state. And none of these things are easy, right? This is a time that none of us really asked for. And certainly we as a legislature are on the front lines of hearing from our constituents about what their concerns are, to the point where I think maybe even we hear more than the administration does. Sometimes it's tough to reach the administration or the commissioners for somebody who's just a citizen to actually get in touch with somebody and voice their concerns. So their first line of defense is the state representative or the state senator that they own. I'm asking you to vote in favor of suspending the rules today to take up this resolution. This resolution does three things. Number one, it ends the peacetime emergency. Number two, it leaves in place a number of the governor's executive orders for those to run their course and expire at their normal expiration as defined in each executive order. And then the third thing that it does is something I want to talk a little bit more about. I think one of the issues that I have had and many legislators have had, and I want to be very clear, I don't want anybody to misinterpret anything that I'm saying as being critical of the governor or his reaction to this. Just as much as you and I didn't ask for this, this governor didn't ask for this, and he's certainly responding in a way that he thinks is the best way to keep Minnesotans safe, and I respect that. The problem for us is that he's acting on information that we most often don't have. And I think the biggest and most important part of ending this, this emergency declaration is that we need the legislature to be brought back up to its co-equal branch of government status. We need the governor working with us. We want to help him work the state through this. And the third thing that my resolution does is actually in response to information that I received last week when we asked to see the modeling. The modeling on COVID that the governor has been using to make a lot of his decisions, and in his defense, he has said that the modeling isn't the only thing that he has used to make decisions. I certainly appreciate that he probably has a lot of inputs coming from a lot of different places. But the modeling showed a couple of interesting things. I'll draw your attention to scenario 3 and scenario 4. Scenario 4 is what we're on right now. It called for an initial 2-week quarantine by all Minnesotans, except those who are part of an essential business or an essential service. Those people are continuing to provide that essential service. The rest of us are kind of stuck at home and working from home and trying to do our best to stay home and not spread this COVID-19. We're also in that executive order or under a subsequent executive order, the governor has extended his stay-at-home order for an additional 3 or 4 weeks, I forget the exact time, until May 4th, at which time we don't know exactly what will happen. But scenario 4 in the model basically modeled what we're doing right now, the plan that we're on right now. What model 3 did is, or scenario 3 in the model, is it called for the original 2 weeks of quarantine by everyone. It then continued the quarantine only for those with the highest risks. So elderly or folks with an underlying condition. We have it basically would have called that those people be quarantined, the rest of us could return to the workplace using social distancing guidelines. So still maintaining our social distancing guidelines, and basically I think that model called for about a 50% reduction in normal interactions between Minnesotans. The interesting thing about those two scenarios is that scenario 3 and scenario 4 had exactly the same outcome. The same number of ICU beds needed and the same number of predicted deaths. The difference being that scenario 3 got us through this about 6 weeks sooner. Scenario 4 pushes the peak out into July, and I'm curious to see what will happen after May 4th, if we'll be allowed to get some businesses open. And I think Minnesotans are ready to operate safely under responsible social distancing and still get their lives on, get on with their lives, get their businesses open and conduct some business and provide the vital services and employ the people that they normally do. These things are really important for our economy, and I do believe that we can do that safely. And the outcomes in the two models were exactly the same. So the third thing that my resolution does is it basically moves us to scenario 3, which would leave a quarantine in place for those who are at the highest risk, which I think is responsible, and it would allow the rest of us to go back to work. And I think this is what Minnesotans are ready for. So the executive orders that would be left in place would be Executive Orders 20-02, 03, 06, 07, 10, 13, 14, 16, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 31, and 34. This resolution is available online. You can certainly read it in greater depth. If you have questions about what is or what is not included from the executive orders, I'll just give you an example. Schools have been ordered to teach our kids from home in a remote setting with no kids attending schools until May 4th. Had we passed the previous resolution, and had that passed in the Senate today, the emergency powers would have ended. That executive order would have ended abruptly, and without local school districts taking action, kids would have been expected to be in school tomorrow. So this just provides a little more orderly way of conducting, ending the emergency powers, and I think a more reasonable and responsible way of doing that, but still gets us to the same goal, still gets us our economy open, and gets people back to work, and starts to get us out of this COVID-19 situation that we're in. So I want to say that our priority is keeping Minnesotans safe, and we think we can do that while still transitioning back into reopening a lot of the businesses in the state of Minnesota. I think people are ready to do this and do it responsibly, and this resolution would be the first step in doing that. So I would appreciate members' support. I would ask for a roll call vote on this suspension of the rules, and I would ask for members' support.
Members, there are social distancing protocols in place to protect all of us. And I will tell you that right now there are a very large number of people ignoring the social distancing requirements. Let's go ahead and do the 15 votes here, but this is the last time I'm going to allow this kind of violation of the health and safety procedures of the Minnesota House of Representatives before I ask the Sergeant at Arms to enforce the rules. Representative Daudt requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Please quit violating the rules. And if you are not permitted to be in the chamber under the health and safety rules, please vacate the chamber. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, I rise in opposition to the Daudt motion to suspend the rules and fundamentally in opposition to the House concurrent resolution authored by Representative Daudt. The resolution is blatantly unconstitutional. There is no question, there's not even a cover of constitutionality to the resolution authored by Representative Daudt. We have a statute in Minnesota, Minnesota Statute Section 12, that creates emergency powers. The legislature passed that into law, it's statute. The governor signed it into law. It is the law of the state of Minnesota that the governor has the authority to issue a declaration of a peacetime emergency. The governor has done that. Pursuant to that peacetime emergency, the governor may issue a number of executive orders to protect the health and safety of the people of Minnesota. The legislature has the authority to end the governor's peacetime emergency through a majority vote of the Minnesota House and the Minnesota Senate. That's why there's a concurrent resolution. The legislature has an on or off switch on the peacetime emergency. What Representative Daudt is proposing in his underlying resolution is for the legislature, by resolution between House and Senate, without signature of the governor, to revoke the peacetime emergency and create a new power for the legislature to act by a joint resolution of the House and Senate and create law for the people of the state of Minnesota and to approve or disapprove individual executive orders of the governor. That is not within our purview. It is not remotely constitutional. It is blatantly political, and I would ask members to vote no.
Discussion. Seeing none, Representative Albright.
Members, we have been told consistently from the beginning of this crisis that this is not partisan. I think we can all agree with that point. Because how could our response be partisan? This virus does not discriminate against who it infects, who it injures, or who it kills. And so we went along with a full stop of one of the world's strongest economies. We went along with a proposal that everyone understood ran the risk of ruining lives in order to save lives. What a terrible bargain. But I supported it because I trusted that this wasn't partisan. It couldn't be. So then, over a month into this response, why aren't we spending as much time discussing the when and under what circumstances we can relax the unprecedented imposition on our family, friends, and neighbors who have lost their jobs? Why is it then that we aren't debating or concerning ourselves with the historic limitations on our God-given freedoms? Why is it then, when our state's largest private sector employer, the Mayo Clinic, effectively tells us that they're going bankrupt because of our response to COVID-19, that we don't hear alarm bells coming from either side of the aisle? And yes, I mean including the man who represented the Mayo Clinic in Congress for over a decade. When we hear that the state's institutions of higher education could be losing billions of dollars that they'll never recover. Why aren't we alarmed about this on a uniform basis? What about when we hear that up to 40% of the restaurants that have closed may never reopen? Why is it that this chamber can't stop for just a minute to publicly demonstrate that it hears and understands these concerns? We told our religious brothers and sisters to avoid their holy places to worship during the most important time of the year, instead of adapting those houses of worship to meet the needs of the moment. We've established an email so that businesses can plead their case to the one man who has the authority to determine whether they live or die. An email. These unintended repercussions are significant, they are real, and are far more long-lasting than the public health situation we all understand at this point. And these more than deserve the legislature's attention. All of these deserve our attention. We need to acknowledge that we are destroying lives, that in order to save lives. we owe it to our constituents to help them understand the path forward after lockdown ends on May 4th. That is, if it does end on May 4th. But what I'd like to hear is at least an acknowledgement that we are destroying lives in a very real way. That science is not so cold as to disregard the freedom to earn a living for your family through our solution to the public health crisis. That data matters more than ever. And when the data show that a course correction should be considered, we should consider it. When I hear that acknowledgement, I believe that this is truly then nonpartisan. Otherwise, I'm left wondering what we're really doing here. And I'll be perfectly honest, my constituents have called, written, and talked to me wondering the same thing. It is not only not insensitive to start asking questions about the solution to get 15% of our Minnesotans back to work, it's quite frankly overdue. And at this point, it's fully irresponsible to not be having that conversation in this legislature. Otherwise, we risk becoming subjects of an ever-growing government overreach. I didn't sign up for that, and frankly, members, I don't think any of you did either. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? The member from Hennepin, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the resolution. I'm hearing every day, as I know all of you are, from my constituents who, like me, really supported the governor's order when it first came out. We all wanted to do our part to stay at home and flatten the curve and buy time for the healthcare system to get the PPE and the ventilators and organize things so that our healthcare system wouldn't be overloaded and overwhelmed. And we did that. Minnesotans stepped up, they bought takeout, they stayed home, and we have reached a point where we feel, generally from what I hear in my district, that the hospitals are ready. Some of them are laying off workers, including nurses. Some of them would long to get back to elective surgeries. So I feel like Minnesotans did their part. They did a remarkable job staying home. It did buy the time we needed, and now it's time to honor their sacrifices and help Minnesotans get back to work. And I've sat through the briefing yesterday and noted the same slides that Leader Daudt talked about, how whether we do a long-term isolation of the most vulnerable, who I do agree we should continue to isolate the elderly who are in long-term care and congregate care facilities. We need to protect them. But there are many other businesses that can start opening up, and we need to be about that business for the people of Minnesota. So I urge support for the resolution, and I thank all of the Minnesotans who have done their part, and now it's time that we help them get back to work. Thank you.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll be really brief. When this was first issued, actually before it was issued, Governor Walz came to each of our caucuses. And do you remember what he said? He told both of our caucuses this, and I remember talking to some Democrats afterwards, and I know that he said this to you too. Be careful how much power you give me. Be careful how much power you give me. He used to serve in the legislature and in Congress. So I think it's a really important point. It's time now. The initial rush of the decision-making has started to slow down considerably, to the point now where we have time in the legislature to pass legislation. Rather than have this state ordered and run by executive rules and executive decision-making, it's time to include the legislature in conducting the business of the state of Minnesota. All of us are hearing from our constituents. And as Leader Daudt said, most of us are probably hearing more from our constituents than the governor's office actually is, or maybe at least more of those messages are getting through to us. We are, if you know the layout of this Capitol here, you know that we are the branch that looks out over the people. We are the ones closest to the people. And so I believe that we need to be representing the people of our districts in the decision-making in the state of Minnesota. So I want you to remember what the governor urged of us. Don't give me too much power, he said.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, when I was driving in this morning to the Capitol, I had a constituent of mine call me. He had heard an interview that I did with the radio this morning regarding this resolution, and he called because he was upset. And he said, Representative Miller, why are you bringing politics into this discussion? Why are you bringing politics into this crisis right now? And I politely and cautiously tried to clarify that with him, and I said, this is not politics. Here's why we're doing this resolution. It's the Constitution. It's all the different things that I said in my argument earlier. Well, if that constituent of mine is watching right now, welcome to politics, because that's what this is about. Representative Daudt's resolution is just another bite of the same apple of what we did. He was wrong in saying that our resolution was poorly written. If he's saying it's poorly written, then that's on nonpartisan research, because we worked very hard multiple days with nonpartisan. They said, this is the way that you do it. This is the way that you do it. We brought that resolution full 24 hours in advance to his caucus. We've been very forthright and open about it. We've talked with some of them about it. And yet this is what's happening. Majority Leader Winkler, with your comments about unconstitutionality and stuff like that, for the people that are watching, we have basically artful lawyer speak coming out, trying to confound people as to why this isn't a good thing. Members, I'm not an attorney, just a small businessman. I'm just a family man. I'm at home with my family a lot right now, and I'm just trying to do what's right. And what's right is for this legislature to take up its responsibility and do the work that people elected us to do. This isn't complicated. This isn't about who gets the win. I remember Representative Daudt, when I was first elected, said, guess what? If you have the votes, you get to say what happens here. And apparently he's correct with that right now. But I am telling you, legislature, as you are sitting here right now, House of Representatives, people in my district, in other districts, and I'm guessing throughout the entire state, are asking us to do our job the right way. Representative Daudt's motion will, similar to ours, a little bit different, but it'll probably effectively do the same thing. He's wrong with what ours did and what it didn't do. He was playing with words. But legislature, we need to move forward and do what's right for the people that we represent now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion. Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and Representative Miller, wherever you, oh, there you are. I appreciate those words, and I agree with you. If you took my words to mean that yours was, I just think that yours had some unanswered questions, and that was my only intent, so please don't take offense, and I certainly didn't mean to impugn you or anyone that works in the House in any way in my comments. I just felt like the process would have left too many unanswered questions, and I had been working on this for quite some time, so and how we deal with this. I had brought this up to the other four leaders on what happens to these executive orders, and we need to start planning for when the emergency powers end, what happens to the executive orders, which ones do we want to continue, which ones do we want to leave. We had that conversation probably 2 weeks ago, and I've been strongly encouraging the leaders to start having that conversation, because whether it happens today or next week or next month or 6 months from now, this emergency, this peacetime emergency is going to end, and this legislature is going to be relevant again, or at least a co-equal branch of government again. And I think we need to answer those questions. in response to Representative Winkler, and somehow I'm creating some powers and this is unconstitutional. My resolution does not quarantine a single person that is not quarantined right now. It does not put in place a single executive order that is not in place right now. It simply ends the emergency powers. And if you think that the section of law that deals with peacetime emergencies is clear, I'd invite you to read it, because not even the things that you said, Representative Winkler, about how it works are clear and delineated. And I think a good lesson for all of us might be that, you know, next session when this thing has blown over and it's a distant memory that we all hopefully chuckle about. It's a pretty serious situation and it's affecting people's lives in pretty serious ways. But I know that at some point it's going to be a new day and we're going to get through this. But we should look at this section of law again and go through and be a little more clear in what it does and how it acts and how we interact with each other, because there are too many unanswered questions. And I'm not going to waste your time going through and outlining where I think the holes are in this. I don't necessarily agree with even the governor's interpretation of how this works, but I do appreciate that he's trying to take a pretty conservative approach in his, he has extended his peacetime emergency. I think a lot of people at home were confused. I'm sure you got the same questions. I had somebody text me while I was sitting here that the stay-at-home order has been extended now through May 13th. That is not true. What the governor did was he extended the peacetime emergency. The peacetime emergency gave him the ability to issue executive orders without the legislature's input. And in many cases, those at the time were needed, and it was a good thing that it happened that way. But we are here now, we are in session, we can work with the governor to act on these issues. The executive order that he issued extending the stay-at-home order does expire on the 4th of May. That was not extended. And that's just a good example about how people don't really, this is pretty complicated, right? But that's why I tried to draft my resolution as detailed as possible so that we answered some of those unanswered questions. It's constitutional. It's most certainly just as constitutional as the last one we picked up. It ultimately does do the same thing as Representative Miller said. It just goes a little bit beyond because it answers some of those unanswered questions, and I felt that was a better approach. With that, I was also going to close with the comment that Representative Scott mentioned of what the governor said, and I think it was valid. I have it written at the top of my sheet of paper here. The governor did visit our caucus prior to putting in place his original declaration of peacetime emergency. And he came to our caucus and he said, "Be judicious in giving me any more power." And he went on to say, "Don't give me too much power." I might be paraphrasing a little bit. Your version was basically saying the same thing. The governor literally stood in front of legislators and said, "Don't give me too much power." Because he understands our Constitution, and frankly, I would think he would use and could use and would appreciate a little more support and some more eyes on some of the data in making these decisions. Again, I want to repeat that I'm not standing here criticizing what the governor's done. Would I maybe have done it a little differently? I can't even say that because I haven't seen all the data. But I do know that given the choice between scenario 3 and scenario 4, I would have chosen scenario 3 with the same outcomes and ultimately getting us through this 5 and 6 weeks earlier and letting Minnesotans who are healthy get back to work. We haven't heard about herd immunity and the fact that this does need to move through those of us who are healthy so that we can build up the antibodies, and that's ultimately how you defeat one of these. I've talked to dozens of epidemiologists who have talked about that over the course of this. I think we've all learned a lot. I try not to look at Facebook for what my friends who have no medical knowledge want to advise me of, but I've rather tried to reach out to experts who know a lot about this. And I spent on the phone yesterday for almost an hour with somebody who's an expert in this, just the two of us, talking about what the right approach is and what maybe not the right approach. And I won't say that the governor's approach is wrong, but given the data in his own modeling that says that we get the same outcome in scenario 3 and scenario 4, I couldn't look at that and say with the damage that this may do to our economy, that we should choose scenario 4. And the reason it pushes out the peak of this is because we're slowing down the spread almost too slow. We do need it to move through those of us who are healthy so that we can build up as a society, build up an immunity to it. And that's how they ultimately go away. That's why they talk about doing blood transfusions from people who have the immunity in their system to people who are fighting for their lives right now, to put some of that antibody in those people to help them fight this. That's how these diseases work. So this isn't anything that any of us asked for, but I want you to know that this is a very safe vote to say, not that the governor was wrong or we're right or anything. That's not what this is about. It's just about saying, hey, we want to be a partner as the legislature, as our Constitution defined, in helping this state work through this. And we want to be part of the orderly process of getting Minnesotans through this and getting them back to work. And I think that's really important. So I'd ask for your support and ask for a yes vote in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I heard the debate. I heard Representative Winkler's arguments, and as I read the statute, it's compelling. I think the resolution we brought forward earlier that was defeated actually removed the governor's emergency powers as it says in statute. And that would have removed them and all the executive orders, all of them, and we could have held on to the current climate we have by having the Senate hold on to that resolution while we put together and pattern a legislative solution that we could enact legally and constitutionally into law. Now, not only does this, and I'm persuaded by your arguments, Representative Winkler, does this not do that, and is it not constitutional? Certainly doesn't follow the law we have currently, but it locks in 20 different executive orders, and I haven't studied all of them. And then it also continues to lock away people in their house for 30 days to 10 weeks, depending on certain conditions. Now, Representative Daudt, you said you've been working on this for a very long time, trying to persuade us you've been working on it forever. It's dated today. So I haven't seen this before. I know we sent out our resolution here yesterday, and I sent it out via email to every member in the chamber, Republican and Democrat alike. We were very transparent with what we brought. This just showed up today. So members, I am persuaded that this is not the right approach. Let's wait till we have a resolution that comes forward that actually follows the law, follows the Constitution, allows the legislature to legally occupy its duties and do its will, and then eventually get rid of the emergency declaration. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members and members of the public, I hope you won't listen to the armchair epidemiologists who've been speaking on the floor on behalf of the Daudt and Drazkowski motions. We actually have people who do this for a living, who understand the course of disease and create models which predict the consequences. Representative Daudt discussed scenario 3 versus scenario 4 and presented it as though one was easier and got the same result and one was harder and got the same result, and somehow we've chosen the harder one for no good reason, or the governor has. The governor has decided that a longer stay-at-home order is necessary and prudent because the hospitals, the healthcare systems that are providing the care to individuals are concerned that the model might be too optimistic about the number of ICU beds needed and how long it will take to create them. If you take the time to listen to the briefing from the Department of Health, which I would hope would be worth everyone's time, it lasts about an hour. There are reporter questions afterwards. The reporter, I can't remember which one, but a particular reporter asked, why would you choose 3 versus 4? And the answer was because the healthcare providers, the hospitals in our communities and in our districts are concerned that the model is too optimistic and that we will need more capacity and it will be more difficult to develop the capacity to treat people. They also say that the availability of ICU beds is the #1 determining factor or correlation between whether you catch it and you die or you catch it and you survive. So we need the ICU beds and we need the time to create them. This is not the time to say that the governor acted when he needed to and now the emergency is over. It is far from over. The consequences of this are significant and they are severe, not just for the lives lost to the individuals who contract COVID-19, but of course, all of the disruptions of family finances, of businesses, of jobs. We did not choose COVID-19. We did not decide that we wanted to have a global pandemic sweep across the world and include Minnesota in its sweep. But it is a real life threat to the lives of thousands and thousands of fellow citizens, our fellow Minnesotans, and we are taking the best steps we can with the knowledge that we have now to combat this disease and stop it as best we can. We have an opportunity together to make the best of that situation for Minnesotans' economic lives. We could pass housing and rental assistance to help both landlords and tenants get through this crisis. We can look at what the federal government is providing in stimulus, small business administration loans, potentially create small business grants or other things to help businesses survive. We just passed legislation today, the fourth installment of a legislative effort to get more flexibility, more resources into the hands of people who are combating this disease. We are as relevant as we are making ourselves, but now is not the time to declare victory. Representative Miller talked about the last time we had a global threat of this nature was the biblical flood of Noah. It is not time to stop building the ark. The ark is not finished. The waters are rising, and we are going to need the ark to save ourselves and our fellow citizens. Members, this is irresponsible. Please vote no.
The clerk will take the roll on the motion. Members on the phone, get ready. They're taking steps before they begin the roll call. If members can pay attention and answer the roll call when their name is called, that will speed up the process.
Acom.
No.
Acom, no. Albright.
Yes.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, yes.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Yes.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, no.
Bonner, no. Barr. Barr, no. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker Finn.
Dowling, no.
Becker Finn, no. Bennett.
Bennett, yes.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, no.
Bernardi, no. Bierman.
Bierman, no.
Bierman, no. Bull. Bull, aye. Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Cantrell.
No.
Cantrell, no. Carlson, A.
No.
Carlson, A, no. Carlson, L.
No.
Carlson, L, no. Christensen.
No.
Christensen, no. Claflin.
No.
Claflin, no. Considine.
Considine, no.
Considine, no. Daniels.
Daniels, yes.
Daniels, aye. Daudt. Daudt, aye. Davids. Davids, aye. Davney. Davney, no. Dean.
Dean, no.
Dean, no. Damath.
Seamus, yes.
Damath, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, no. Eklund.
No.
Eklund, no. Edelson.
No.
Edelson, no. Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Erickson. Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
No.
Fisher, no. Franzen.
Yes.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
No.
Freiberg, no. Garofalo. Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
No.
Gomez, no. Green.
Yes.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Aye.
Grossel, aye. Grunhagen.
Aye.
Grunhagen, aye. Gunther.
Aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
aye. Halverson. Halverson, no. Hamilton.
Aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
No.
Hanson, no. Hassan.
No.
Hassan, no. Hausman.
No.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzemann. Heinzemann, aye. Herr.
No.
Herr, no. Hertas.
Hertas, aye.
Hertas, aye. Hornstein.
No.
Hornstein, no. Howard. Howard, no. Hewitt.
No.
Hewitt, no. Johnson.
Aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
No.
Jordan, no. Jurgens.
Aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn. Cleavorn, no. Cagill. Cagill, no. Katiza Watun.
Nay.
Katiza Watun, no. Kosnick.
Yes.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish-Podine.
Kunis-Podine, no.
Kunish-Podine, no. Lehman.
Aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
No.
Lee, no. Lesh. Lesh, no. Liebling. Liebling, no. Lean.
No.
Lean, no. Lilly.
No.
Lilly, no. Lippert.
No.
Lippert, no. Lislagard.
No.
Lislagard, no. Long. Long, no. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Lewick.
Aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
No.
Mahoney, no. Mann. Mann. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Marquardt.
No.
Marquardt, no. Mason. Mason, no. McDonald.
Aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklin.
Mecklen, aye.
Mecklin, aye. Miller.
Yes.
Miller, aye. Moeller. Moeller, no. Moran.
Moran, no.
Moran, no. Morrison.
No.
Morrison, no. Munson. Munson, aye. Murphy.
No.
Murphy, no. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Nelson M.
No.
Nelson M, no. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
No.
Nor, no. Nornis. Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
No.
Olson, no. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Palowski.
No.
Palowski, no. Purcell.
No.
Purcell, no. Petersburg.
Aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
No.
Pinto, no. Poppy. Poppy, no. Poston.
Aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
No.
Pryor, no. Quam. Quam, aye. Richardson.
No.
Richardson, no. Robbins.
Robbins, aye.
Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell. Sandell. Sandsted.
No.
Sandsted, no. Sauk.
No.
Sauk, no. Schumacher.
Aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
No.
Schultz, no. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
No.
Stevenson, no. Sundin.
No.
Sundin, no. Swazinski.
Yes.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke. Tabke, no. Tice.
Yes.
Tice, aye. Torkelson.
Aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl. Erdahl. Vang.
No.
Vang, no. Vogel.
Yes.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
No.
Wagenius, no. Wozlowick.
No.
Wozlowick, no. West.
Aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, no. Walgamot.
No.
Walgamot, no. Zhang Jie.
No.
Zhang Jie, no. Zhang Ti.
No.
Zhang Ti, no. Joachim.
No.
Joachim, no. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, no. Man. No. Sandell.
No.
Sandell, no. Erdahl. Erdahl, aye.
Okay.
You are muted.
There being 56 ayes and 77 nays, the motion does not prevail.
House Concurrent Resolution Number 9, being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Announcements. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 12 noon, Friday, April 17th, 2020.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until Friday at 12 noon, April 17th, 2020. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until Friday, April 17th, 2020 at 12 noon.